All right, y'all. Welcome to All Politics of Local America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Y'all know if it's Friday, y'all know it's time for All Politics or Local. So tonight, of course, you know it is the second Friday, and normally we would get started with the vote, but tonight we're going to do a tribute to the former council president, Mother Mildred Crump, who is probably one of the most prominent elected officials in our city, in the city of Newark. So we're gonna get started with that at 6 o'clock. We're gonna have some guests come through, some elected officials, and we're gonna talk about the great work she's done, and of course some of the lives that she's sown into. Of course, like mine and Zayid's and a number of other people. She's not only been a mother to her children, but she's been like a mother to all of us, and have garnered tremendous respect from the entire city. So that's going to be up first. And then what's happening after that, Zayid?
At 7 o'clock, several months ago, we had some young people from Public Square Amplified, some student journalists at the behest of Josie Gonzalez and her team, who gave us their insight as young people on the election. They're going to come back and have a post-election analysis. We've been having this ongoing post-election analysis from the usual suspects in these matters, but we're going to have these young folks back and hear their take on what they are facing now that this election die has been cast. After that, Ande Richards of NewJersey.com, the Star Ledger, particularly of the Mosaic column for NewJersey.com, who also works at Public Square Amplify, by the way, I just learned, has an upcoming important webinar on domestic violence that she wants to share some information with us. And then a young man who's no stranger to these airwaves also, he was quite the student activist once upon a time when Seton Hall was hot in its most recent iteration of student protests. Chris Duran, who's now working on his PhD and is doing some important Cuban solidarity work with the Venceremos Brigade, the country's oldest contemporary Cuba Solidarity Organization. We'll talk about his recent trip with some of his younger comrades and why solidarity with Cuba is very important at this particular pivotal moment. Then, of course, we take it out with our beloved DJ Rhino, the latest in the land of hip hop. So we got a full night.
Oh yeah,
all the
absolutely, Brother Rhino. Yep. So I see the councilman in the back. So Mike, you could bring him through if he's there. Let's see if we can get this started. There's my brother. Peace, peace, peace.
Peace and blessings to the brothers.
What's good, Councilman? What's happening, brother? Councilman,
brother.
hey, listen, man. Good to see you, man. Of course, I've been gone for about a week.
Yeah. You took a voyage on us. I ain't gonna tell where you was at. Like you was enjoying yourself though, there, brother.
Yeah, man. I'm still trying to recover. Listen, John Austin ain't recovered yet, so I'm still trying to recover.
Yeah, you left me and brother Zayid up here in the struggle, brother.
I did.
Actually, I'm just getting off a plane my damn self, but it was a work trip.
Yeah.
But listen, of course, we're talking to our beloved brother, Councilman Pat Council, who is the councilman of one of the most dynamic wards in our city, of course, the South Ward, where, none other than, of course, our beloved former council president, Mother Mildred Crump comes from. So we're going to start a conversation tonight talking about her. Of course, we have our homegoing that's taking place tomorrow. The wake is tonight at Metropolitan Baptist Church. And then, of course, the homegoing service is going to be tomorrow. So we're going to talk tonight, the first hour. We're going to celebrate her life, talk about her. She not only sowed into my life, Zayid's life, and, of course, the councilman's life, but she sowed into all of us. I mean, all of us who came up in the city of Newark got something that we can say about her. But Pat, I'll give it up to you, my brother, and say what you want to say about Mother Crump, brother.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, man, condolences to the Crump family, to brother Larry Crump, council president, to his sister Sage, and to all of our former council president emeritus, caretakers who watched over her, who cared for her, and to all the people that served with her in the great city of Newark, New Jersey, and more specifically the South Ward, where she laid her head and fought for folks. And I had the pleasure of being her councilman, as she had the pleasure of being my council president. And so, it is a definite loss to lose a soldier in this fight, in this struggle, who came from Detroit, but understood the complexities of what was happening in major cities and things that was happening all around, coming here out of the struggle of our rebellion and moving and fighting to advance herself as the first African American woman elected here in the city of Newark into politics,
Right.
and later on became the council president. Her story, as many of the things that we go through, is protracted. It's circular. To get to a point, she had a lot of battles and fights, and she had her community scars on her, and she won with pride. She won with dignity and with love. And that's why she became Mother Mildred, not just here in the grounds of the city of Newark, but even all over Africa as she began to visit and move about in these places, encouraging our brothers and sisters on the continent, and then coming back here and pushing us into this kind of thing where we can begin to understand that we are greater together than apart. I know in all of her struggles and her fight, that when she finally amassed and got to the place where she needed to be, she always made sure that folks knew that she was from Newark, loved the city of Newark, and would always be a fighter for this city. And so it is definitely a great loss, not to lose an elder of wisdom. And I say that because we recognize and realize that death is the sting that may touch us all, but to you lose a great source of wisdom and understanding, not just in the realm of politics, but also education. Because many times when people think of our former council president emeritus, they look at her as a political person, but her root is grounded in education. So she understood the importance of education for Black and Brown people, but also for those that were marginalized, those that were disabled, and fought and taught in the school of the blind, the school of the deaf, and was very prolific and what she has done in encouraging and elevating people, and pushing her story across, that when young girls could be able to see her greatness, that they can realize that they are great as well. And so, those are some of the things and that we have to continue to hold on to, the things we got to continue to carry, as we lose this beacon of hope. But we also have to recognize that all of the things that she expound and put in us, the lessons that she's given us, not just as a politician, not just as an educator, but as a mother talking to young African American men as a mother would do. We got to hold high those things, so that they are represented in a fullness about the work that we got to do out here in these communities. The work is not over. Our job is not done. And she is still, as an ancestor, Brother Zayid, going to hold us accountable and responsible for what we do to hold high the name of not just Mildred Crump, but this great city of Newark and the work that we do.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. What say you, Zayid?
Oh man, well, I Mildred belongs to, I'll say several things. I met Mildred. She was one of the first organizers that I met when I came into Newark in the late 70s. I came into Newark from Union County. I'm originally from Plainfield, New Jersey, and I went to school in Roselle. In 1978, I became a Muslim, right? As folks like to say in our community with our roots in Elizabeth, mosque number 82. But I left mosque number 82 and ultimately came to miles number 25. But that first bevy of organizers that I met outside of the mosque included the great Mildred Crump, Joyce Morgan. I went to school with Joyce's daughter, Fatima, at Rutgers. That was the point of connection. Joyce's living room was an organizing den, right? Frank Hutchins, and that crew of organizers, right? That were strong on housing and education. Mildred was strong on both during that time, and of course, just trying to keep the community grounded in that particular time frame as things were shifting on the national stage and shifting on the state stage and so forth. Mildred belongs to that generation, that first wave of elected officials that came straight out of our struggle, right? As organizers, as activists, right? And as such, she didn't come in as a career Democrat. She didn't come into the ranks in that way, the way a lot of sellouts do now today, right? She came in straight off of our streets as a part of the organizing efforts of the people, the grassroots people in our streets. And then as such, when she became an elected official, like that generation of that first wave of Newark elected officials, she also knew and understood how to keep her base activated. You knew what Mildred was doing because, and she knew what we were doing because she would always be there. Showed up.
Right. That's right.
Showed up. And she wasn't the silent type. When her voice needed to be heard, she knew how to raise it. If her presence needed to be felt, she knew how to make it felt, right? And when her wisdom mattered, we knew we could always rely on her and count on her to give her what we needed. Two things. I'll say two more things very quick, because this is really about the community's time to lift this great sister up, right? And I'm very proud and honored to really have been able to call her, my friend, right? Mildred also had the painful distinction. Y'all know I've been beating the hell out of police for years. The painful distinction of being targeted by the local police union. Pat, you remember that, right? And had her first stint in City Hall interrupted by the intrusive political bullying of the police union that ran with former Mayor Booker at that time, and we had Oscar James come in on the wings of that. That interruption didn't last. I'm glad she heard and felt us and recognized, that the principle matters at the end of all these things, and came back. And the following election took her rightful seat back. And it was in that mix that she would also ultimately become the first Black female city council president as well, right? And finally, right, when it came time for us to make that hard pivot and to push our little brother from the South Ward into the big house as mayor, Mildred was one of the first of her generation of that family of leaders to say that the time has come to rally around Ras.
Yep.
She was one of the first out of that class to do that. Right?
Yeah. And you remember she said they drunk the Kool-Aid?
You understand that? That's right. We are forever grateful. And that unity, that right there, we took that, bam, straight out of the streets and finally took City Hall for real. And she came along with it.
Yep. Well, I tell you, man, for me, what was interesting is that when I graduated from law school, she would always, say to me, I want you to come work for me. And I would always say, I'm not ready to do that. And then I remember the last time I saw her, she came to the studio, Pat, and she was like, listen, but I want you to go to work for somebody for me. I want you to do something. And I said, now, I'm not gonna, acquiesce the way people want me to acquiesce. She said, well, I know you ain't gonna do that, and it's okay, but I just want to recommend you to somebody. And and I'm not going to say who that person is. I just said to Mother Crump, I said, out of respect, I'll talk to them. But at the end of the day, I need to be able to pick and choose the brothers and sisters I want to work for and who I want to work with. And, because for us, she was like a mother to us. And what bothered most of the brothers and the sisters in the street, is when people who didn't know her would disrespect her. And that,
Say that,
because Zayid, a lot of that was these cats, these were these new cats who were coming on the scene. And Pat, that too. A lot of these new cats that were coming on the scene didn't know who she was. You know what I'm saying? And so if they would come to the council and disrespect her, we had to come out of our constitution at times to say, ho, brother. I think you got that confused. You can say what you want, but we ain't gonna allow you to do that. And Zayid, me and you stepped to a couple of brothers about that once or twice about how they went down there and act. And so, but Mother Crump, she been on the show a couple of times. I remember we did a special to her, and some of the people that she went to school with was amazing, man. And I didn't know she went to school with Claude Anderson, and she was telling me that story about her and Claude, and when I spoke to Brother Anderson in New York, he was telling me some stories about how revolutionary she was. I was like, what? Mother Crump? I'm like, come on. He's like, brother. He's like, y'all don't know Mildred, brother. Y'all don't know her. I was like, man. And these are the kind of people that we come from, right? So when people come to the city of Newark and they look at us and they think that we're accomplished and we elected officials, they really don't know the people who nurtured us, right? And all of those people who nurtured us, they got street credibility, they got community credibility, and so when we come around them as the sons and daughters of these people, we understand the level of respect that we give them, and we call on everybody else to give them that kind of responsibility, respect. So, for me, I'm going to miss knowing that I'm going to naturally hold on to all of my memories, but I'm going to miss not knowing that she's over there patting the South Ward somewhere, that we could just stop by the house and talk to her. You know what I mean? And
get a piece of pound cake. Get a piece of pound cake.
So
you can't make that stuff up.
Yeah. You can't make it up, man. Listen, in her pocketbook, she kept her coffee mate. Yeah, she kept her coffee mate, and she kept a piece of pound cake. Somebody need taste this. Right. Tell me if you wanted one, baby. So not only was she a community leader, like Zayid said, but she was a community mother.
Yes.
She told you like it needed to be told, right? Mm-hmm. She corrected, she loved, she chastised, she lifted, she praised, and even sometimes even her acknowledgement that when she went wrong, she came back and publicly apologized.
Right.
That's the strength of a woman.
That's right.
Man. I remember she ran for mayor when Ron Rice was running against Sharp. And at the end of the election, Sharp was making fun of him, and he told him, he said, I fried rice and I dumped Crump. And they laughed with him, but she didn't fight, because in 88 she came, as I said, she came right back.
That's right.
She came right back.
That's right. Yeah. And the thing is, man, I remember right up until the point she got sick, she was still driving her own car, Pat.
By herself.
Yeah.
No driver.
No driver.
No driver.
But that was the level of respect and love she had in the neighborhood, man.
Yeah.
And that's just that, and you got to remember, Pat, part of that is because of who we are. You know what I mean? And and how we came up in the city, and we understood who she was, and so she had that level of respect and was able to move around. But that is the example of the kind of leaders that we've got to be able to continue to produce in the city.
That's right.
Right.
Yes,
And I think, you know, when you are a real leader and you want to lead intentfully and you really want to make a significant change in your people's life and your people's condition, sometimes when you have the naysayers and the cynics out here, most people really don't understand the kind of toil and torment that you go through on a daily basis, day in and day night, the treachery that you have, even when you're sitting down in rooms by yourself or laying down, the thoughts and the things that are on your mind and going through you, and how that just wears and tears on your this instrument, you know, called our body.
Right.
And at some point, you know, if we're not conditioned enough to take care of them or realize what we should do, you know, that kind of strain will pull and push us in different directions. You know, one thing that I could say about, you know, Council President Emeritus Mildred Crump is that she was always present. You know, like Brother Zayid said, she was always present, you know, present for the struggle, present. She showed up. She didn't miss it. She wasn't a late warrior. You know, people, you know, talk about all the time when it's time to go to war, who's going to show up on time? Because there's a lot of people that love to talk, but then they're late for war and you done missed the fight. You done got everybody killed because you late, right? But she was never late. You know, she was on time. And that's what we have to recognize and realize, you know, as we continue to move forward, that we got to show up, man. We got to be present for those that love us, those that hate us. We still have to show up. And then we have to understand that the underlying community and belly that's underneath us got to know that the torture and the torment that we have to go through in trying to save our people and reconcile our people to themselves so that they can see the greatness in who they are, because for so many years they've been knocked down and beaten. That self-hatred has been put upon them so much that they can't even recognize the greatness and will of themselves. So in order to move forward or help another cause, they'll go support somebody else and justify why they helped them, and not realize that it's at the torment and detriment of their own people.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yep. You know what's interesting is I was thinking about Zayid and Pat. I was thinking about, I saw her at a fundraiser for for Pop, and she came in to the meeting, Pat, and she said, hey Zayid, she said, oh no, she said, y'all know I'm a Pop member and I'm a lifetime member. She said, so don't get that twisted, you know. And don't get the meeting started until I got here. And I was like, and you know, Pat, I didn't know that. I didn't know she was a lifetime member with Laz.
Yeah.
Laz gonna be here to tell her story. But I was like, wow. I'm like, this is incredible, man. You know what I mean? But again, that is what I'm talking about, Pat, when I say that, you know, and when we're talking about somebody who went by herself all over the city, anywhere she wanted to go, right? And could command that level of respect. And that is because at the end of the day, if she had something to say to you, she would say it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She wasn't afraid to come and have that kind of conversation with you, because 90% of what she was telling you was not necessarily what you wanted to hear, but it was what you needed to hear.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Right? And that's the difference between people who love you, right? Versus people who are trying to just, you know, give you a bunch of bullshit. You know, she told you what it was that you needed to hear, especially if it was about this city. Okay. And it was about, you know, the people who basically, I mean, you got to think about it. I mean, you know, she told us, not just me, but she said that when the mayor asked her to run, you know, Pat, she said she didn't want to run.
That's right. She'd put in her time. She was tired. Yeah. But she did it anyway.
Yeah.
And she told us, she said she did it only because the mayor asked her.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm saying, you think about that and that alone, because you know, and Pat, you know this, because you know when you're done with this game, all the stuff you going through, you might say, nah, I'm finished with that. I ain't gonna do that.
A sacrifice. A sacrifice is too great. Because historically, and Brother Zayid to tell you, you know, when you look back at this kind of struggle and you want to get into it, you recognize the sacrifice becomes too great because you look at the lives of Malcolm, the lives of Martin, the lives of Mega, and then you compare it to, you know, what it is and the weight that you got to carry out here and the end result behind all of this stuff.
Yeah.
That's a lot. It is indeed a lot. Indeed a lot. And by the way, Lawrence Hamm of Demo Chunga should be joining us at some point within the hour to share his reflections. Since you hail down that POP memory.
Yes, sir.
They should be on to join us. As should Reverend and Councilwoman at large and regular here among the disciples, Louise Roundtree, and as should our deputy mayor, Keesha Eure, should also be joining us at some point within the hour, we hope. And we should also say too that, you know, we're doing this, we're kind of against the grain, because that wake that is going on right now, it's going to be going on at 8 o'clock, is going to be fully loaded and speakers were already lined up. So it's almost like the people's funeral and then the family's funeral tomorrow, right? So a lot of folks are back and forth trying to negotiate that space, and we totally appreciate that, you know. But yeah, we could go on all day about this great sister because she put in that kind of work. I remember one of the things that actually I used to mess with her about is that in her Detroit background, not only was she the first Black woman to teach Braille. You know, she was an a pioneer, on that front, back in the 50s and whatnot, right? But when she started talking about her stuff in the streets, I said, Mildred, you lying. Right? She said, I had a little set that I used to do, and we used to support this and support that. But, streets being different from what they were then, the sets as we knew them then were more about community protection than they were about banging each other and slinging this poison in our streets that benefited no one, And I used to always kid her about that, but she was, before she came to Newark. She came to Newark from Detroit with a fully loaded, profile already, right? And you mentioned, of course, the folks that she went to school with back in those days. She came ready to rumble. She didn't come, undeveloped and unready. She came ready to rumble, fully developed and with clear skill set, a clear set of principles, and a clear capacity to really get some things done and be a part of our people doing what we needed to do here. So she was, her walk was a long, mighty walk. We're just very proud of her and blessed to have had her, because she could have stayed in Detroit.
Yeah.
She could have definitely stayed in Detroit. Detroit is a hotbed of radical tradition and community service. We were lucky that she would come this way.
And she had become the first in a number of things, man. And to be, the first Black woman on that council, man, was a major achievement in the city of Newark. And then, of course, to become the first Black female council president. I mean, that was an amazing task, man. And you got to think at the time she was coming through, all those brothers that were on that council with her were some powerful brothers, right? Mm-hmm. And she was able to hold her own, And also, Zayid, you got to remember, she's also a Rutgers alumni, right? In her master's, Yes. So, I mean, when I saw her, when I was in undergrad and she would come through, it was always an amazing time, to be able to talk to her and spend time with her. But we need to be able to produce people in our city who love our city like that, right? Because if you've heard that, Pat, you've heard that saying, you can't really serve people if you don't love people, right?
That's right. Yeah,
You can go through the motion, but if you don't really love them, you can't really serve them. You know what I mean? And I think that's what we saw, with Mother Crump, and that's why, whenever I would see her, it was always, and I think for all of us, it would always, and I know Larry was her son, but it was always like a mother-son kind of conversation, right?
Yeah.
Even though you would talk to her about things, but the way you listened, it was with a different ear.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I'm going to miss, around this city, man, because we need to be able to produce those kind of people that really love this city and really want to serve the people in that way. And I think that's the kind of stuff, Pat, I see with you. That's the kind of stuff I see, with some of the other brothers and sisters on the council, because those are the kind of leaders that taught us. And when people come here who aren't necessarily from this city, it's a take instead of a give, right? And we've got to have a give mentality in this city.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely. You also got to have a soldier spirit.
Yeah.
Mildred had a soldier spirit, and she understood what it meant by being a soldier. That sometimes when you out here in battle, that there may be some battles that you may not win, but it does not mean that the war is over. And so you have to relentlessly continue to come back and struggle and move. She understood some of the tenements of unity and struggle, because there were some things that she may have wanted that she did not always get, but that didn't preclude her from fighting for what it was that she needed,
And she
especially when it
really
came
felt
around the narrative of helping to grow our senior population in the city, and making sure that these seasoned saints understood that the struggles and things that they were in, that they should not have been left out, or should never be, set apart from what it is that they deserve. So she fought for these seniors in the city the same ways that she would fight for these babies, newborn or not. She would bust
yeah,
up in any hospital, any location, to speak about, equity, to speak about justice and freedom, for the rights of the people, and all of that stuff is important. And we can never, forget that, and know that her memory will live, on through that, and that's why we, even in the consciousness of what we did, even in this, that with the Million Man March, when we say long live the spirit, is really talking about long live the spirit of the work that we do, the work that we have to do, and the work that has been pushed upon us to continue to do. So when we say long live the spirit, of Council President Emeritus Mildred Crump, it means something. And it has some distinctive meaning to it, and something that we have to carry on to. Have to get out here and do the work. We have to travel. We have to move, and we have to know that every day is a different challenge, is a different struggle, and we have to be willing to struggle with it. Not just be pessimistic about things, but have an optimistic spirit. And she had that optimistic spirit that things could get done, things could happen, and we can see things in a better light. Those are some of the teachings and things that we have to hold on to. I
yeah,
know that everywhere she used to travel, she sure used to stand up and she used to say, "To God be the glory." And so she
yeah,
understood that the work that she did was bigger than her. And so she recognized and always brought her God into the fight with her, because she knew that she couldn't battle alone. And that's what we have to recognize. We don't battle alone.
Yeah. Yep. And she'd become real famous for her hats, right? I remember people used to always look forward to seeing her in church, and you could always tell she was present in church because she would always wear these really, really nice hats, which is a staple in the Black community, right? For mothers of the church. And so all of those things, man, is part of our culture, part of the hard work that we put in, and being able to do that. And I'm proud to say I'm from Newark, because and I'm proud to say I'm one of her spiritual sons who sat under her feet and looked at her example, and always appreciated anytime I got an opportunity to look out for her. If she was somewhere and she didn't know I was standing in the cut, making sure that she was secure, the same way I did that for Mother Baraka, or or Miri Baraka, any of them elders back in the day. They didn't know that, Pat. I was a young man, but I knew enough that the work that they put in, I wasn't going to let none of these new jacks ever get them in a position where they would be uncomfortable, worried about their security, right? They didn't know that. I told the
Right.
mayor one time, Pat, that I was downtown and Amiri had forgotten his car keys, and they had just left Jay's restaurant, and Amina had to stand there by herself. This is when Raz and Mitty were in college, and I remember, I had a meeting to go to, but I sat there and waited. He didn't know it. He didn't know it.
Right.
I sat there and waited for him to come back. And when he came back, I pulled off. But that is the same thing I would do for Mother Crump. I would see her somewhere and she'd be by herself, walking to her car. I would sit there and wait until she got in her car, and then I'd pull up and speak to her. Because that is, and that's the kind of training and love we should have for our elders, no matter what, man.
Right.
No matter
100%.
what.
100%. 100%. One of the things too, and a lot of people don't realize this, when I took over, when I had my little moment with the new Black Panther Party, a lot of folks, were very uncomfortable with that, particularly in official spaces. Not Mildred. That's Panther Man. That's,
Right.
Had me on her show. Would show up at our events, didn't take a single step back, and understood, what it is that we were trying to do when we developed the work that we did here in this area with some great folks like one of your co-founding colleagues, the great Bashir Akinyele, right? Who you got there with you, Pat?
Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, brother.
Oh.
She is here with me, ready to share on the show. Legislative Black Caucus.
You can't just it's radio, Shavonda. You can't just you got
wait. We live at the wait. We doing interviews live from the wait, brother.
We stay working because Mama Crump taught us that, so we give her homage today and to the family for her legacy. But know that thank y'all, brothers, for keeping our message alive, making sure that we stay strong together in the work that still needs to be done today. We gonna need y'all more than ever, starting at the top of the year. Y'all know that, right?
You can believe that.
So y'all better be ready. Call me so I can get on the show. We got something to talk about.
Yeah, but listen now. This is radio time now, right?
Yes.
A lot of folks don't know that you got you a podcast of your own. Why don't you tell everybody about that real quick?
That's it. That's why we got to get on there. Okay, top of the year.
All right. Tell everybody about your podcast. Can you still have your podcast? Can you?
Oh yes, there's something about it. So there's something about it on WBGO or where you catch your Spotify, where we're talking about the issues that we work on in the New Jersey legislature. But we really need to amplify it because it's important more than ever with the ballot design, being block voting, that we're able to keep minority and women candidates in office, that we make sure our folks know that we're working hard for them. And we also need to hear what's on their mind and how we can do better for them. All right?
Shavonda, one last thing before you go. Is this your first time on this show?
It is not my first time on this show, but I done hijacked the councilman's show.
Well, that's all right. That's how we get down.
So
this is a community Trump.
All right, y'all. Take care. All Happy holidays.
Same to you.
Yeah, I can tell it at the church.
Yeah.
And so it's befitting, since we're honoring and talking about the life of our dear sister Mildred Crump, that we catch people. I got the surrogate here, who's also a Southport resident, the surrogate of who was led by our dear Council President Emeritus Mildred Crump. Done a lot of work in the community, guided by her, lifted. He has some good stories to tell about our dear sister.
Hello, family. How's everything? Sorry for coming on in summer evening. For me, Councilman Crump was probably one of the most influential individuals that the state of New Jersey ever created. Not only just because of her leadership, but because of what she inspired. And look who I have behind me right here. A legend in himself, Junior.
Oh, yeah, great Junius Williams.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. This is all power to the people, all politics. So
All
just want to give
politics are
him a,
local, sir.
listen. You know what? I'm gonna defer to him because I know he has a better story than I do because he's smarter than I am. He has more. How you start? He's more in the struggle than I ever was. So just give some words about what
Judy, you just walked into our tribute to Mildred on the air of All Politics Are Local. Give us a moment. Tell us about your colleague in Ghana.
Well, she kind of was like me in a lot of sense. She came from Detroit. I came from Richmond. And I think that's significant. And there's something drove us here. Mildred had a bunch of firsts. I'm sure people have talked about this. Person of color, black woman on the center council. She became the chair of it. But one thing I remember, Mildred did me a great service because he recognized what I was doing over there at the Abbott Leadership Institute in Rutgers. First of all, she would come to my classes and classes on Saturday. And Mildred would just come in and sit and listen, learn. But she also gave me an award because she liked the way I related to women. And that meant a lot to me. I didn't even think about what I was doing, but I think women as leaders, this is men are leaders. And I showed that at the Abbott Leadership Institute. So she recognized me for that. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in here now because I'm running.
I'm running late as well.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, brother.
Good share. Good to see you, sir.
All right. Bye-bye.
Good. So I'm gonna just give my little quick story about this wonderful sister. I had the chance to meet her when I was, I think it was 16 years old. And I met her at an organization called Quest Youth Services at a program called Kajinga Institute. And we were trying to figure out what our next phase in life was going to be.
Oh, wow. He was getting into a good story too. And that I remember Quest. I remember Quest. And that was a group of young folks, and he said he was 16. Those were high school age students trying to figure out how to go into college as activists and do, community minded work at the same time. They were very visible. They were a very visible moment, when Al Tariq was younger. Has Al Tariq been on the show before, Ed? You muted. You muted, Ed.
Yeah, he has. He's been on when he was running for for the office and so forth, and he's been on since then.
Yeah. Okay.
Talking about what it is that he do.
Yeah, because not too many folks even know what a surrogate is. More or less a black surrogate, right, from our community like that. It's a very heavy responsibility, and it's the kind of seat that oversees the flow of a whole lot of money. Coming from those of us who have the means, to really lay some stuff out in their resources in terms of their financial legacies, right? It's a heavy responsibility. So yeah, that's good. Pat trying to come back on. Let's hope we can get them because he was starting a nice flow, that was really reflective of how Mildred touched his generation. That was really a good flow. So I hope we can get. And hear us.
I'm right here, brother. I don't know how, yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, he's still trying to get in.
We can hear you, Pat. So
I'm here.
There you go.
I'm on. I'm here.
Al Tariq was starting to tell us a real nice story about how he met Council President Crump when he was 16 years old.
And I was
16.
I think I was 18 when I met him. So yeah, I can understand.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
I went out. I apologize. So I was 16 years old, and I was saying I was a part of an organization called Quest Youth Services with Ms. Carter and Mr. Carter, and they had a very, very Afrocentric based program where we were talking to young people and talking to ourselves about leadership development. And so I met Miss Crump at one of these institutes. And again, at the time, very powerful woman. And we never had the ability to talk to someone in elected capacity until that moment. And she poured in us about the importance of government, the importance of activism, the importance of public service. And from that point going forward, the humility, that Councilwoman Crump gave us, afforded us, made sure that we were able to follow that leadership from, challenging systems to ensuring our people were put in the best position possible. And from that point going forward, it inspired us to say, we got to make the city of Newark better than the way we found it. And so to our sister, we appreciate the services you gave to Larry and his family. Thank you for giving us this beautiful woman to share with us, share with our community. Because they could go anywhere throughout America, but they started here in the state of New Jersey, started here in the city of Newark. And fellas, for you two, listen, there was Open Line, there was Tony Browder Journal. You guys are in the same spirit. I want you guys to continue informing, people of color, specifically Black people, about the importance of politics and why what you're doing is critically important for what we're doing today. And so I want to thank you for your sacrifice and your commitment to ensuring that we have a powerful community that's informed and that's relevant. So thank you.
No, we thank you. We thank you, brother. And, we appreciate that story because you represent the embodiment of the work that she did for young people, right? And I'm older than you, and I know the work, I know what she poured into me,
Yeah.
And so when we look at you, man, we're proud of you for listening to her, because a lot of young people today wouldn't even take the time to listen to somebody like, Mother Crump. So thank you for even listening, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, thank you. And I want to thank you as well for the work that you guys are doing. I had two powerful brothers in front of me. All power to the people.
Oh, yeah.
That's I was talking about you earlier, brother.
I'm supposed to be on here too.
And Roger's supposed to be on here with us anyway.
Live at the wake for our dear Council President Emeritus, paying homage.
That's right.
These two good brothers, Brother Zayid and our dear brother Ed Riley, is holding down the force, supporting all politics and local, speaking to the people out there about the works and the accomplishments of the great Council President Mildred Crump. We got Brother Imam here, Brother Bashiri, and our own council at large. She's supposed to be as y'all called her, the big daughter. She's supposed to be coming in, but we grabbed her up now because she'll start running like a rabbit.
That's right.
If it wasn't
for
Councilman,
running like a rabbit. You can say that again.
Good evening.
All right.
Brother Baba, look who over here. Look who over here, the Right Reverend Councilman of the South Ward, Patrick Orlando Council, and I email from the South Ward. And the battery is down to 5%, which means I'm gonna have to come on my phone. I'll be able to last long. The guy be the voice. We know and many of us are. She stayed on the battlefield, but some of us was home sleep. Somebody said she runs all over the city. They said, yeah, you number 2. I got it for you. You meaning Mildred C. Crump. So I thank God that Mildred, Council President Emeritus, Mildred Joyce Coleman Crump. Y'all didn't know those two names was her names, did you? Did you know her name was Joyce Ann Coleman? Y'all didn't even know what the C stood for, did you? I just told you she was Mildred Joyce Coleman Crump. And she was a mother, she was a wife, she was a Braille teacher, she was activist, she was one who stood for things that people would sit back and not open their mouth for. She was a voice for the voiceless. She even helped those that could not see. They saved the Jesus, helped the lame to talk and the blind to see, and the dumb to talk, the lame to walk, and the blind to see. Well, guess what? Mildred Crump was his helpmate. So she made sure that her assignment was what it needed to be, not just for the city of Newark, not just for the county of Essex, not just for the state of New Jersey, not just for the United States of America, but come on, Africa, come by and let's stop in Africa for a minute, but they call her Mama Africa. Don't get me started, because Baba, I'm on fire right now because don't nobody have to tell me that I need a match from them, I bring my own oil and I don't have to slide in on yours. I slid right on into All Politics Are Local. The number one, hip hop. On my way.
Go
Don't
ahead.
get me started. Let me go back in the way. I love you, Brother Ed. Thank you for producing such an awesome program. Thank you, Baba, for being who you need to be. Here you go, Baba. And there you go. Amen. I Lord. Here you go.
Yeah, y'all might not realize I'm back with you, but me, for all of y'all. Go ahead.
Available, one that's available, not just during election time, not just during campaign time, but she's available. And she don't have to show out. She just has to show up because she's a powerful Black woman who knows how to get things done. So we follow her lead over the decades. She's a trailblazer, a pioneer, and a beacon of light for this community in the state of New Jersey.
Amen. Well said, sir. Well said. Looks like they froze up.
Right.
Matt, grab your phone. But he was right on time. That was right on time. That's excellent. You know, and live on the scene. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
That's absolutely good.
Really
man.
good stuff. That's very apropos.
Yeah.
100%.
To be able to talk to the people who are actually there celebrating her, you know, and it's a great thing, man. You know what I mean? You know, especially when people show up at your home going, man, and can say all those great things about you.
Yeah.
You know, what it does is it speaks to the work that you put in, you know, and having sown into people's lives, man. So absolutely amazing, man. You know, but again, Zayid, those are the kind of leaders, man, that, you know, that we've got to continue to produce in this city.
Yes, sir.
You know? And you know, it can't be people who want to show up, you know, just like the Imam said, it can't be people who want to just show up at election time. It's got to be people who want to show up in between the election time when the people need the services and the people need help. Right.
We're about community. That's right. We're genuinely about community. Mm-hmm. Demonstrated they're about community, produced by community, and put forward by community. A lot of folks that of that particular generation, they didn't, you know, do what they did in our community to you know, to become elected officials. They did that to move the needle of struggle, right? When the moment required that some of them step up and take that next step of responsibility, some of them answered that call, right? But not, it's not what they sought, right? The larger question is how can all these moves we make and all this protests we're doing, all this hell we're raising, and all this ballot, you know, orchestrating that we're doing with our new access to the ballot, how can we change our condition? That was the principal question. How can we change our condition? And then, of course, now bring it back to Amiri, you know, because Amiri understood, you know, from a revolutionary vantage point, the whole notion of democratic pluralism and how wherever you got the majority, you take over. You act like you're the majority. Whatever your percentage is of the population, that should be your cut in terms of the resources and whatnot. And you should be putting people forward from your ranks who understand that, right? So, you know, we were grateful to have had her come through all of that, you know, in the way that she did, in the very upstanding way that she did. What's that old song? Let my deeds speak for me. Yeah, she, you know, that would definitely work at her homegoing for real.
Yep. Yeah, there's no doubt about it, man. I think that, you know, at the end of the day, Zayid, you know, it's, you know, Bashir said this, man. He said that we are the elders now, right? And because all of the elders who paved the way for us, right, they're going home to be with the Lord. They're leaving the field. The thing is that, and I don't know if you saw this, Zayid, but I sent the text out and I said, unfortunately, so many of us are not them. Right. And what I mean by that is, you know, the folks who are coming behind us and some of us who came behind them are not willing to put in the work. Right. You know, and it's and the problem with that is that we wouldn't be in the positions we're in had not it been for them. right? And that's the sad part about it, because I think that, is, I mean, you think about, I think Larry is really the only one who still has a weekly meeting.
That's right.
Do any other organization in the city of
That's
Newark have
right.
a weekly
That's
meeting?
right. That's right. NAACP, I think, is bi-monthly. It's
Right,
bi-weekly.
right.
Yeah, that's right. That's
You
right.
know, and remember, Amiri used to say that you can't call yourself an organization unless you have a weekly meeting.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? That's what an organization is. And so those philosophies don't exist anymore. And young people now, unfortunately, I mean, where's the real struggle for liberation? Where's that at?
It's been replaced by the struggle for likes.
Right. You see what I'm saying? But that level of consciousness, man, is what we're missing. And so that's why I'm saying, when we're losing people like Mother Crump, you start to lose those kind of people that are on the field. And
Foundation.
yeah,
Foundational voices.
important. Yeah,
Foundational voices. He's trying to pop in now. He's an hour late, but but he's right on time.
yeah. Peace, Larry.
We were just talking you up.
Peace. How you doing? Had a kind of emergency I had to take care of. That's why I'm in the car.
All right. Okay. All right. I'll holler at you afterwards and whatnot. We do our check-in and see what we can do to help you. You know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going on? I'm trying to get down to Metropolitan.
Yeah.
For
the wake.
For Councilwoman Crump's wake. I wanted to go. My original plan was to be there at 5, but then this emergency situation arose, and I had to pick somebody up in Hillside and bring them to Newark. So.
But that's who we are. That's who we are, Demon. That's who we are. So given the constraints of your moment and whatnot, give us your Mildred story for the few minutes we got with you.
Well, I met Mildred Crump probably about 40 years ago, maybe a little more than that.
Yes, we've been more. It's about 40 for me.
yeah, maybe a little more than 40, but she was one of pop members. Like, I came in between 1982, when we were founded, in 1984, which was the first Jackson campaign, and she was somewhat active in POP, and was a strong supporter and a strong financial supporter. When you first starting up an organization, you don't have much money, ain't nobody paid no dues yet, so people make donations, and she was always helping out financially. She was always helping us to get places to meet at and have programs at. And then after she got elected councilwoman, she was a real help in that same regard, but even at a larger scale. I think the thing that I remember, if I was to tell a Mildred story, the one that jumps out immediately would be the Strawberry Daniels affair. Strawberry Daniels was a young woman that was killed by police in Newark. She was in the police vehicle when the police shot her. I mean, she was like in the rear seat in the police vehicle, and the police shot her and killed her. And Ross Baraka at that time was not on the city council. He had an organization called Black Neoforce, and they led a march downtown Newark during a weekday, during working hours. And the paper said that there were 400 people in the march, and I don't dispute that. I just happened to be at City Hall going in, probably trying to get some permits for some marches that we were going to do. And I hear this big commotion, and I see this huge crowd coming down Broad Street. And I'm not going to tell every detail of the story, but the long shot was that one of the demands of the people who were marching was a demand that had been a long-standing demand in Newark since the days of Amiri Baraka, and that was for a police review board.
That's right.
That was for a police review board. And Mildred Crump was the only council person. I'm not going to say she was the only one that supported, but she was the only one who vocally supported, who said,
right,
you know, I'm in favor of the police review board. We need to get a police review board. And between that and the demonstrations around Strawberry Daniels, Sharp James felt compelled to actually take some steps. I was surprised by this, you know, and it just goes to show you that these public officials are not immune from pressure. You know, if you apply the right kind of pressure and enough pressure. And so after the demonstration, Sharp James called a meeting of all like community leaders. It had to be about 50 people. And he included myself and others. Certainly Black
I
Nia
was supposed
Force
to
and
be, and I stayed outside. We were outside. We were rallying outside at the same time. I was supposed to go, and I stayed outside. I remember that.
Right.
Go ahead.
So right. So it was so serious that Sharp James had prepared briefing books for all the participants in this meeting. Briefing books on police review boards around the country, you know, articles and stuff that people could read, because it looked like there was going to be it looked like he was trying to make a serious movement to maybe establish a police review board. Well, what happened was the police got real upset, and they voiced their opposition to the police review board. They were so upset that they had a demonstration in front of City Hall. Imagine this: the police had a demonstration.
That's right.
And the police, during their demonstration, symbolically lined up in Broad Street and then turned their backs on City Hall. And they, in particular, condemned Mildred Crump for supporting the police review board. Remember, I said that she was the only one that I could remember that actually vocally supported it. So she became a target of the police. The police targeted her. And the municipal election was coming up, and they targeted her, and they helped in the effort to unseat her after her first term on the city council, because she supported the police review board. The good news is that, you know, she regrouped, and when Cory Booker came into Newark, and you know, he got elected to the Central Ward City Council, then he decided to run for mayor. He put together a ticket, and I think Mildred was on his ticket, and Mildred got reelected back to the council after having to sit out. You know, she got elected the next municipal cycle. 4 years later, she got reelected to the city council. But she was very vocal, very supportive, and fairly easy to work with. You know, and you know, when you're a city council person, you catch a lot of flack. But Mildred seemed to have wide support. I'm not going to say she didn't have any opposition, but she had wide support across the city, you know, and I think she was a good council person. There was one time when we wanted to have a Martin Luther King program after our annual march, and Mildred opened up the city council chambers.
Right.
She got the
That's
city
right.
council chambers open so that we could actually have the Martin Luther King program. After we marched for Martin Luther King, we went into City Hall and we had the Martin Luther King program in City Hall. You know, so she was strong like that, you know. And I'm sorry to see her go, but you know, we all have a time, and when our time comes, we have to move on. We have, some people call it a graduation, you know, so different people call it different things, joining the ancestors. But she will be missed, and she won't be forgotten.
I'm glad you shared that. I gave the short version of that story at the top of the hour, and I came back to it and amplified it, right? And it reminded everybody how she used to come into our meetings and say, you know, don't y'all? I'm a lifetime POP member, you know.
That's right. As much money as she donated, she's two lifetime POP members.
She used to tell me that all the time, Larry. She said, don't get it twisted. She said, brother, I'm a lifetime member of POP.
Yep. And that's why I have to go down here today and pay my respects to her. You know, she was a good member, and you know, very community minded person, you know. And she was a trailblazer. I think she was the first woman president of the Newark City Council.
That's right.
Right. She wasn't the first woman council person, but she was the first woman to become city council president. And she held that spot for a long time, you know,
right.
for I think at least 2 terms, right? She held the position of city council president. So she was a trailblazer, you know, and you know, from hailing from Newark's South Ward, you know, she was over there on what's that street after Chancellor? Half of, huh?
Lions?
No, I can't think of the name of it. Half of the street is in Hillside. Like if you go, it's in Newark. She was on the Newark side, but if you went further up, you'd be in Hillside. I can't think of the name of the street right now.
Yeah.
But she did well. You know, her son is now on the council. Is he the city council president now?
He's city council president now. Yes, he is.
He's the city council president.
We got to get him on, you know. Yeah, we got to get him on.
Yeah. So she will certainly be missed. You know, she was a powerful Black woman. You know, powerful woman, period. But, you know, she was a Black woman, so she was a powerful Black woman, too. And, you know, we need more Mildred Crumps, you know, in the difficult times that lay ahead. We need more people that are going to, you know, fight, as they say on the song, what did Public Enemy say? Fight the power, you know, because that's what's going to be happening after January 20th. You know, with these cutbacks, there's going to be cutbacks in federal funds of a lot of programs that these cities depend on. And, you know, if we don't have people who are willing to speak out, they just try to roll over us.
She definitely was one to stand up. Definitely one who stood firm.
Did y'all go down to Metropolitan yet?
No. I'll be down. I'll go down tomorrow for the actual service.
For the funeral.
Yeah, we'll be there tomorrow. But you know, we had Pat and you know, he was down there live, and he had a number of people bounced on from Metropolitan. Rountree was on, and it came through, and Pat, and you know, so they were broadcasting live from down there.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got some actual flavor right from the gathering, right from where the masses were. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, we appreciate you coming through, my brother, to give us, your piece on that. We've got some young people that are about to come through.
Well, let me get out the way.
But
Let the
before you get
old
out of
make
the way,
way
though,
for the new.
before you get out of the way, though, tell everybody about January 18th.
Yes, we are moving forward towards our annual Martin Luther King March. The theme of this year is March of Freedom. And unlike the previous year, this year we're reaching out to all of our coalition partners and for endorsements. And right now, I can report that we have 159 endorsers for the march, and that's a good sign. I mean, it's not a guarantee of anything, but it's a good sign in terms of trying to pull people out to make a powerful statement, to say that we're going to resist attempts by the Trump administration and others to overturn those things for which Martin Luther King fought and died. Man, I don't think I'm here at the church. I don't think I'm going to get a place to park. It's packed down here.
Oh, yes.
I guess I can go in here. They don't have the barricades up. But it's packed. You can always tell when it's packed. There's no parking on the street. And it is cars as far as you can see. I think I'm going to just pull up right behind this car. Well, let me jump off because I'm at the church.
All right.
And I'm gonna go in. All right. Take care.
Excellent. 159 organizations have already endorsed the march for January 18th. Folks still want to do that. I'm going to try and put it up to you. You can contact Ademo at his POP contact information and add your organization's list to that effort. But this is definitely the time to unite and resist this backwards march of the right wing under Mr. Trump and the monsters that are the mega men and women who want to take us backwards in ways that we haven't seen in quite some time. Right? Now, we're going to segue to a segment that we've been looking forward to having several weeks ago. I should say several months ago. We had some student reporters from Public Square Amplified who were giving us a very fresh, burgeoningly professional take on what they were looking at as the election cycle looms. And here we are now in a post-election moment, and some of them are back to share their analysis as well. I understand it's supposed to be up to 5 of them who are with us. And yes, the great Ande Richards is going to be here, is here now, who will do the honors of introducing some of her students. So Ande, welcome to All Politics Are Local. This is not your first time, is it, Ande?
No, but we won't talk about the last time. I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay. That's all right.
No, but thank you for having me back.
Yeah, well, so glad to have you back. Introduce us to the young folks who you got with us today.
Yeah, and I have introductions for everyone, but sweet little Ashton.
It's okay. I can go after if that works.
So Ashani, I know, is a high school junior at Edison High School, right, Ashani? I get that right? She is an award-winning journalist. She won Impact already. She won an Impact Award for actually a story that she and Zoe Van Gelder co-wrote about lowering the age to vote in the school board elections, which we all know about in Newark, right? And it was successful. So, but that was kind of groundbreaking reporting. and they got acknowledged for it. So journalism is all about awards, people. Don't think we that's what it's about. So that's really cool. And then we have Allah. And Allah is a new community reporter with us. And she is also, and I want to get this right, Allah, you are a graduate of Rutgers University, and you have a degree in journalism, and you currently work as the director of programs at the Muslim Network. And you are a Public Square Amplified community reporter, and that is no easy feat. So welcome. And Ashton, can you
Yeah, for sure. Hi everyone. My name is Ashton. Right now I'm an engineer in pharmaceuticals, so I make drugs. I studied chemical engineering in undergrad, and now I started law school.
How you say that, son.
Yeah. I started law school because I wanted to do patent law, and I'm excited to get into the discussions for today. I've gotten involved with Public Square because I know Josie, who works at Public Square, and she graciously pulled me into this panel of people who are Gen Z, and I'm excited to get to talk.
So, Josie is the founder of Public Square, along with a collective of Black women, and she
at us in the chat.
Yeah, she runs the day-to-day operation and everything in between. So she's gonna giggle when she hears what Ashton said. Yeah, that's right. JG. So I actually had the opportunity to hear these young people talk about their post-election thoughts. What was it, last week? I can't remember when it was. I'm getting old. But they are so crystal clear in their observations. And I think they have really keen questioning minds. And there's a point to it. They want to understand what's happening because I think they want to find solutions, So I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say tonight. And I'm going to shut up now.
Well, no, don't shut up. You're the presiding elder of this conversation. You gotta help. You gotta help.
They can hold their own. Trust me.
And
I'm doing double duty tonight.
That's right. Because we got a segment that's spotlighting, some work that you've got coming up that we definitely want to talk about when we finish this segment with these very bright and very promising young folks that you were proud of. Ashton, welcome back. You were with us a minute ago.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're the most senior out of your colleagues and comrades.
I might be.
Right. So let's give us your before.
Sure.
And your after.
Yeah, I mean, so maybe I'll start in July when we got the news Kamala Harris was going to switch in for Joe Biden. Excited. I thought Democrats had a chance. And I think the excitement probably stayed until we realized polling saw that it was very unclear who was going to win, pretty much a statistical tie in a lot of polls. And then election night, really disappointed in the result, but I think not surprised. I think we've seen over the past few years the country move to the right in a lot of different social and maybe also economic ideologies too. So I think I'm not too surprised with the results, and I think where we are after is bracing for an incoming administration that is going to work towards weakening federal regulation. So we're going to want to work locally and within states to make sure that whatever we want to have in protection is still protected. And I think we're also going to see that emboldenedness of the right again that we saw maybe in the first Trump term in terms of higher hate crimes, just more kind of brazen attempts at really getting at marginalized people. So those are maybe my takes at a high level. I probably have some more, but I want to give it to my fellow panelists too.
But before you do, let's because I mean I don't know. I can count on one hand the number of Black men that are going to school for patent law, right?
Yeah.
Right. But as a student of journalism, science, and law, what do you have to say about
Sure.
Someone who's almost anti-science, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he is bringing to government, and how he is going to use or misabuse the law in ways that we need to be very much vigilant on the alert about.
The way I see, I think I'll maybe take a step back from the question too. The way I see science, and also really any field that that Black people are in, is the previous Black people in that field are essential. Knowing the history of who was in your fields and how it was difficult to really rise up and have power, and in my case, the sciences, is not something I take for granted. So, that's one end of it. The fact that I made it as an engineer and I'm in pharmaceuticals. The other end of it is now I want to study patent law. And the reason behind that is there are the vast majority of patents owned by white men. And patents are what give you the right to use an invention. So if you think of something cool, you can go to a lawyer, say you want to get legal protection for this idea, and you have to file with the government to get that protection. And so the idea behind it is we are inventors. The people are so intelligent. And one example that really got my gears turning about how do I do something different is a Black woman is the person who first had the idea for different color emojis on like an iPhone, and she applied for the patent before Apple did, actually, to the US Patent Office, and she was denied. And then a few years later, Apple applies with the same thing, and you can imagine a company with access to huge legal team. They got the patent, and I think that's one of probably countless examples. So I ideally somewhere there's policy work in my future. I know that I'm going to probably have to start in learning the basics in industry, but yeah. So I think that's how I see my role in patents. Now, maybe taking a step back to your question, to the Donald Trump of it all, the anti-science kind of rhetoric that I think we've seen during the debates. They asked him about the environment, and he says he wants, about climate change specifically, and he said he wants clean air and clean water, which doesn't address what scientists have been saying for decades now, and we're mid into the 2020s. I remember when I was in elementary school, they would say, yeah, by 2025, we should be able to, we'll be fine, we'll figure this whole climate thing out, and it's just not the case. So makes me worried, I think, is the summation. The federal government is one of the only actors that can ensure the country complies with a set of environmental standards. States individually don't have the same incentives that the United States would have to make sure that we reduce emissions. So on that standpoint, I am worried, but I think it just depends on how we handle things individually as states.
Loaded. Thank you for that, son. Thank you for that. Right. And I'm going to turn to our granddaughter from Edison, right? And I actually, you were with us in that first go around too, some weeks ago, right? And
yes, I was
doing your thing and whatnot. So what's your analysis, student journalist? What is your before and after on this election? What's your take? How are you seeing it?
So I think for me personally, at least, like Ashton said, it wasn't super unexpected the way the election turned out. I think some factors that perhaps got me to this prediction was the fact that the Democratic Party has kind of always been the party of the people. I'm thinking since Great Depression, it's always been trying to appeal to the laborers and the minority groups. And in this past election, I don't know whether it was just because of the timing or just the chaos going around it all. It felt yes, Harris was talking a lot about I want a better future for the people, but that when she talked about those topics, it was just vague. It was just really, really vague and only in idioms and grand statements. And the focus of their campaign kind of went into advocating for reproductive health, which, while very important, did not tackle their entire demographic group and also just their campaign strategies themselves. I remember she was on a lot of like podcasts like Call Me Daddy, which is like very like a feminine, like not even feminist, it's just like a really like a big cultural podcast. And she had a lot of celebrities like Beyonce, J-Lo, etc. coming out for her. And if I had to guess, I feel like the Democratic working class and maybe even ethnic minority groups almost felt like, yeah, I mean, this is supposed to be my party, but they just seem to be a party in name and they might not be talking about me specifically. While I feel like Trump had a very good hold on his demographic, so he probably was less likely to lose his people because he kept reiterating the same "Make America Great Again," how to come back from globalization. He just kept on focusing on the points that he knows his voter base would empathize with. So I think he did a better job at connecting to his demographic than the Democrats did connecting to theirs. So I think that's probably why they lost this election. So I'm hoping the next election they can better regroup and learn how to focus on issues and policies instead of direct campaign strategies, and that can really like speak to the people. So that's kind of my take on it.
Hey, Shani, let me ask you this follow-up question, and all of you can jump in as you see fit too. One of the things that has been particularly troubling about this moment, because they represent such a far right shift in their agenda, is that there's an element of fear that exists in the electorate, and particularly among newer voters and among younger voters. What are you seeing in terms of that kind of energy response to the Trump election?
So for me, at least, I think I think there are two different reactions that I see. I see one online, then I see one in person. So online, I'm seeing, people are like the day after the election, there were TikToks, Instagram Reels. People were breaking down. They were scared for their human rights, for their rights as, people of the queer community, as people as like minority groups, as immigrants, and people were terrified. And then of course, I know there was like another recent like big lashback on social media because Trump began like hiring a lot of people who were associated with Project 2025, which suggests that Project 25 might, like parts of it at least, might be adopted, which again, like completely terrified a lot of people. But then like in person, and by the way, I go to Edison, which is a majority like Asian and like minority group town. Most of my like classmates are immigrants or children of immigrants. In my school, especially like the one I go to, just has like a huge Hispanic and Black and like Asian, South Asian population. Like those three are really big groups in my high school. And I see that like, but in my own school, I don't think people seem that scared. I think in my own circles, I feel like people kind of have this like mentality like, oh, we already went through one Trump administration and another one is like, I mean, unfortunate, it's not the end of the world. And I think in my circle, I think people understand that like presidential power can maybe only go so much. And we have a lot of like faith in just like we live in New Jersey. It's a very like one of the more like liberal states. So that's like one that's in a lot of people's minds. I think the scary part than him winning is just the fact that a lot of people feel so radicalized to the right, and they feel so strongly about like some like very like nativist ideals. I think that's the scary part, not like his win exactly, but kind of what it represents.
Thank you for that. Now let me shift.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was coming to you. I was
ready to jump in.
And let me greet you also. Say assalamu alaikum, because you're other than my old gray behind you're the only other Muslim in this conversation. And this election certainly means a lot to those of us who are of an Islamic background,
right?
But give us your before, your after, and jump in and add to the conversation as you were getting ready to add to the conversation with your interjection. Go ahead, come on in.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's really great to speak to you all, and I'm really excited to be a part of this panel. I think I think obviously it's great that you highlighted in the beginning my identity as a Muslim and then also as an Arab American. There is there is a view in our community, I guess I could speak to my own position, my own community around American elections, not necessarily of apathy, but more of whoever is elected, they're all the same in different clothing. And that is kind of how I came into this election, very begrudgingly, of kind of wanting to reject the lesser of two evils and wanting to reject the two-party campaign that's really, really, we've been really fighting hard to break out of, to not feel, suppressed and not feel suffocated by two parties who are not doing what we want them to do and who are not serving the people in the way that we want to be served. So this was my first election voting third party. Well, it was the only option for me. So I wasn't really on Team Harris or Team Trump, obviously. And I think the results of the election were not surprising to me. I pretty much expected it. And I think a lot of it, I think people are turning, like Ishani said, on a personal level. People are turning a lot to nonprofits. They're turning a lot to local politics, community organizing as an outlet to reconcile the reality of what's happening on the federal level. And I think you're repping today with the kufiya. And so I wanted to also bring up the fact that there is a lot of pushback from other groups that, we shouldn't make this a one issue vote. Palestine should not be at the forefront of the reason why we're voting a certain way. But I think for me, it was important for me to push back against that and to make a statement, because existing right now in America, just existing with our tax dollars, with our whatever our beliefs are, it's directly impacting people overseas. It's directly aiding oppression and apartheid and genocide. And that's something that we have to reject as a people. And so what I would add on to what Ishani was saying is that I'm seeing on a personal level now, a month after the election, people are starting to be a bit more positive. They're trying to tap into their organizations, tap into their community, redefine their communities, and brace themselves for what is coming.
And I really want to thank you for lifting up, because we had the conversation in our first go around. I raised the question of the scepter of the Palestinian question and what it may cost the Democrats this particular election, and I was personally disappointed in how so many among Democrats weren't even comfortable having the conversation while a genocide is unfolding in front of our eyes. So I salute anyone who stands up on principle and who came out critically, as we all did and absolutely were supposed to do, as this government continued to enable the genocide that is unfolding right before our eyes. And it continues, hasn't stopped. There's been a facade of a ceasefire around Lebanon, and Israel keeps pounding away. And the dollars keep rolling in, and the bombs keep dropping, and the bullets keep firing. And so I appreciate that. Just as an old head on here, I appreciate you standing up for principle. And that's something also we talk hard about elected officials who are wishy-washy on principle. But what does it mean for a democracy when journalists fail to stand up for principle? And I'll let each of you respond to that question, because that's a question that's going to affect each of your lives as you proceed on your own march, seeking to raise serious issues.
I think sorry, I know I just spoke, but I actually read something recently that really hit me. It was by a journalist who's like a Neiman Fellow at some point, and she put out a piece talking about how we are losing a generation of journalists. And I think it's a really important thing to bring up outside of the conversation of quote unquote objective journalism, community journalism, emancipatory journalism. We have to address that there is a underlying unfortunately, in this day of age, it takes a certain level of elitism. It takes a certain level of privilege to even be able to be a journalist or pursue journalism or to be taken seriously as a journalist. By that, I mean the industry itself. It's obviously a monopoly. They're huge media conglomerates. And to break into that, you need to fit a certain mold, obviously ideologically, but also economically. The journalism industry is not sustainable for someone of a low income background, for someone of a different socioeconomic background. You have to be, an Ivy League student that's okay with doing like an unpaid internship or living off of, a $40,000 salary. Even like journalists in the highest corporations are not happy because of some of the financial things that they have to go through. So there is a conversation that needs to be had about the economic sustainability of journalism, and that is actually pushing the voices that we need to be heard out of the profession. And so we're seeing the results of that, where people or journalists quite literally can't afford to be a journalism, and that's really, really, really eroding the news, the quality of writing, the types of stories, the communities that we're able to read about and consume in news because of that. And so that's kind of a different layer I wanted to add to the conversation about journalism, because it's something unfortunate that we're seeing. But I'm going to pass it off to Ashani or Ashton.
As you say this, I got to seize a teachable moment because I have a comrade in the Black Panther Party by the name of Mumia Abu Jamal, who has just entered his 43rd year in prison, who was a first-rate journalist of the finest order, president of the Philadelphia chapter of the National Association of Black Journalists, and because of his outspoken voice, he had to have a second job as a cab driver, right? As a cab driver. This is 1981, when on that fateful night, on December 9th, 1981, when he walked into that police officer's bullet and found himself being framed for the murder of a police officer, and we're still trying to get him out of prison since then. So you laid out quite an insight. I just wanted to acknowledge that and acknowledge also how deep that goes. The rest of you go ahead and respond to the question as you can, and then we'll get ready to wrap up. And we got to turn to Teacher Woman because she's got a big segment we got to talk about too.
Sure, I can jump in. We're talking about just what it means to maybe compromise. Well, we're talking about journalism, and what was the question again? Actually, can we just get it repeated?
How is it for you, as student journalists?
Right.
How important is it for you to be able to evolve and to stand firmly on good journalism ethics and principles in the face of, the limitations and the constraints of the corporate dimensions and the money dimensions of the industry?
Okay, great. I can go because I'm kind of outside of the journalism world. I think what I noticed this election cycle is how orchestrated media, CNN, Fox, ABC, how big media companies were thinking about we're kind of laying out the theater of the whole election. So what I observed is that having those other organizations like Public Square, maybe places that aggregate news from other sources that aren't these giant media companies. I have an app that gives me sources from the left, from the right, and from the center, and I can see who's talking about what story and how they talk about the same thing, but maybe the different connotation behind one story. So I always appreciate nuance. I think I don't appreciate when I'm being spoon-fed whatever conclusion that I'm supposed to take away. One example I can think of is I had a classmate who got to CNN talking to Jake Tapper about how the campus protests that young people were doing across the country at both public and private universities, protesting university financial involvement in the genocide in Palestine. Pretty much she's talking against that. And it felt like they were using the fact that she was Jewish, the fact that she went to a great school, to push this narrative that these protests are pro-Hamas, are anti-Semitic, when in actuality they were anti-genocide. So I think that's where journalism comes in, as someone who's not in that world, but from the outside, I think it's critical for journalists to keep their moral compass in a what can I say, in kind of like a campground where you might be able to be influenced by money. So yeah, I think that's my answer to that one.
Shani, you want to respond to that at all?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, it's really interesting, and I definitely echo what Alla and Ashton said. I think first of all, I'll give an answer like as a reader and then like as a journalist, because I think I was first a consumer and then a writer. But it's very like clear that traditional media has such biases. Like each new I can like name a certain like newspaper and you'll know which presidential candidate they support. And I think, while certain writers can support specific candidates, I think a newsroom or a publication should be more about certain ideas and ideals than a certain party. If that makes sense. And I think with the like in traditional media, with just like with all like the agreements that, for example, like the Washington Post or the New York Times or like Meta or these social media companies might have with the White House, there kind of prevents from journalists from really like publishing the best quality work. And for example, I was like really thinking I was trying to Google while you were talking, because I remembered I'd recently seen this. I think David Sachs was the one. He made like a statement talking about like the like fall of like traditional media, and I think it was Jeff Bezos. Like he's like a billionaire, and he's the one that he gave this like statement in like 2024 about how he's been losing so much money, and how like I think it was his publication, the Washington Post, was just losing relevance, and he thought that they were losing money through by talking about and by like giving these really like generic opinions, which shows that not only are the people moving from traditional media, but so is the money. And I think that is possibly a positive thing, because it encourages, now this is my opinion as a writer, but it encourages spaces like Public Square and other like independent media outlets to start gaining more of an audience, because people are realizing that the independent medias, the nonprofit newsroom perhaps, are the ones talking like telling the truth and giving their full well-researched opinion, instead of just harping on what corporations or like lobbying groups or like political parties want. I think that's really important. I think the growth of independent media is probably one of the best things that came out of so independent like press and like newsrooms is probably the best thing that came out of this election. I think Public Square Amplified is also like a really important part of that here in New Jersey, at least.
Wow, right on. Thank you for that. Ed, you want to jump in? Anything you want to ask these young folks?
Yeah, I do. I think that first off, I want to congratulate them and say I appreciate their contribution. Real thought out, and I can tell that they've had some really, really good teachers along the way. So really, really excited, to follow these young people in the future. But I want to ask you a question, kind of like the elephant in the room. I've got a niece who is a senior in high school. She graduates this year from high school on her way to college. But you all, journalists are a lot like artists, right? They are supposed to be able to speak truth to power. And I wanted to ask you, from your lens, how much do you think this election had to do with race? Any one of you can start.
I can go. Oh,
you can go, Shani.
Okay, I think I don't think one of the thing that reminded me of was one of the biggest stats after the election was like the percentage of like Hispanic men that voted for Trump. And I think that, and people were like really infuriated about it because they were like, oh, why would a minority group, immigrant group, vote for Trump? And I think from the way I mean, of course, I mean, race is always like a huge issue in every election, but I'd have to say that, in my personal opinion, I don't think Harris lost because of race. I think she lost because she put almost too much of an emphasis on race. I know, like, she talks so much about, how she's a Black woman and all those factors, but I don't think that, like, at least from my opinion, I don't think when you're a working class, like, person of color, I think what helps more is someone talking about what they're going to do for you instead of the fact that they are, like, they identify as your demographic. And I think that's probably how race played a role, because I think people get confused that when just because you are of a race doesn't mean you're representing that race's interests. And I think that's perhaps where Harris lost a lot of like minority or like Black or Hispanic votes. But, and of course, I'm sure there's a population of like extremists and like racists who hated Harris because of her being like a woman of color. But I don't think that was the reason that she lost.
Interesting. Y'all jump in.
Yeah, I think I just want to like ask a clarifying question about what your question was. Do you mean race of like voters or the race of who was running?
No. Both. I mean, race and gender, right? Did she lose primarily because she was a Black woman, or did she lose because she was a woman? As a journalist, what did you see, right? We had, on All Politics Are Local, we've had a couple of shows where we've discussed that. We've had people who come on who are activists who were very involved in the election. We've had some actual leaders who said that they were betrayed by white women. In particular, we've had some Black women leaders, who wrote very telling New York Times articles. We've had a prominent journalist, Joy Reid, who came and said that she was betrayed by white women who she thought that were supporting Black women and Kamala Harris in particular. So you all, as young journalists, I'm interested in knowing what it is that you all saw. I mean, these are prominent people on MSNBC, CNN. You all are naming some of these folks, and these folks clearly say that they saw race. I've got a young 17-year-old niece who have had this kind of conversation at her high school, at a prominent private high school. So I'm interested in knowing what do you all see. You all are, like I said, the artists of the world. Journalists are supposed to speak the truth to power. What do you all see?
And Ed, if I can, I'll add to your question. I mean, there was a clear demonization of the racial background of everybody who's supposed to be an immigrant, right? Only allowable immigrants or immigrants coming out of Europe. Now, that wasn't said, but the way every immigrant group that wasn't coming out of Europe was horribly demonized, and that's playing out in other places. And I'll add to that as we engage your answers. But hope that clarifies the question.
Ala, were you going to go, or should I?
You can go, Ashton.
Okay, great. I'm thinking a few things. So there's a thought out there that Kamala Harris lost because she was a Black woman, and I can't get on board with that. So also non-journalists here, but what I'm saying is my experience being Black, growing up in a family of immigrants from St. Vincent from the Caribbean, I've learned responsibility for myself. I've learned how to be an active member in communities that I'm in terms of making sure I'm offering help when I'm needed at work, with my friends, with my family, making sure that I'm checking in with people, making sure I'm telling people how I'm feeling. So what I'm saying is the values that I think I've gotten as a child of immigrants from the Caribbean have only helped me in this world. And I'm going to assume, I don't know her, obviously, but I'm going to assume that being Black and being a woman are only things that have helped Kamala Harris get to where she is. And I'm going to stand on that. And I think what the Republican Party did this election cycle was use the fact that she was a Black woman and try to make that a pejorative. This is the closest a Black woman has come to having the presidency. And there's, to me, what I perceived is a fear in that. So what do you do when you're fearful? You use arguments that aren't based in fact. They said she was low IQ. How's that possible? She served in all 3 branches of government. This is an attorney general. This is a successful prosecutor. Now, there's a debate on if being a prosecutor moral or not, but we're going to shelve that for now. And what I am going to say is, I think we saw some legitimate fear that the most othered person in the United States, the Black woman, could have had power. What I think my initial excitement was for this election was the fact that she was a Black woman, but I think my excitement was more that she was the first Black woman I've seen get that far. But I don't think she was the correct Black woman to be our president, given how pro-war she was, quite frankly. Wanting to show that we have the most lethal military in the world isn't aligning with my views, and still doesn't. So what I'll say is race probably had a factor. I don't think this was deciding, especially because we were in a year, these past 4 years, we worked on recovering from COVID. There was different geopolitical issues, Russia invading Ukraine, then we had the Israel-Palestine war. So people wanted change, essentially. People were feeling the effects of inflation, feeling maybe also social change too, with the conservatives censoring transgender identity as an issue. So I think that was strategic. I don't think race was a primary, maybe was not the primary. I think maybe involved in a cocktail of reasons, but I can't say it was the reason that she lost.
Yeah, I would also jump in and say that I think personally, I don't think I was expecting that America wouldn't elect a woman as a president, and also a Black woman. I mean, Hillary Clinton was like a white woman who couldn't make it past, never mind a Black woman. I do think it was part of the factors, but then I do want to challenge us to think a little bit about the fact that Kamala Harris was quite consistent in her policies or even in her positions with Joe Biden's positions and generally with the Democratic Party's position. She wasn't really pushing back on any of their policies, whether that be her position with Palestine, whether that be her position, like a slew of positions. She was aligned with the Democratic Party and with Joe Biden. So I think that actual inconsistency and her not willing to listen to the people, which was a majority who had problems with the Democratic Party and the certain policies that they had, her unwillingness to listen to that and to engage with those concerns in good faith, I think that's what cost her the election, because although she was a Black woman, there are a lot of her policies, a lot of her positions are directly in line with the Democratic Party and with white interests a lot of the time. So I'm not going to be completely, again, I don't have all the answers. Obviously, race and gender, I do think, play a role, but she also fit the mold of what they wanted. So that couldn't be a reason why she lost, I think.
You know, there were a number of people who after the election were actually, I don't know if you all have heard this, but there were a number of people who were actually going around and screaming white power, right? Have you guys heard that?
I haven't. But I think also that might sound like a distraction too. idea that we might now see more people have agency to scream things like white power in the street. I think we don't talk about the white men enough, actually, when we talk about voting too. We don't talk about all the white men who had maybe even more access to know that the economists were saying that Trump's plan for tariffs was not going to help the economy. It was going to probably hurt us again to the tune of $80 billion as it did in the first his first administration. So I think we're not really focusing on them. I think as a community, we talked about the Black men, the Hispanic people, we've talked about the white women, but not about the largest voting bloc for the Republicans at all, where the Democrats could have used votes from. And I think that's what confuses me. So I might pose that question back to you. There was just a lot of, to me, it seemed like the logical choice for the economy was not Donald Trump at all. So I think I'm wondering, why did the majority of white men not see that too, the logic in it?
Racism is very illogical. Mm-hmm. Privilege is very illogical, and it can be pathologically illogical. And I would dare say that a lot of white men voted against their common sense interests, as you just described them, because the idea of being associated with and protecting their privilege mattered more. And it's been a constant, intractable construct in the American paradigm since the history of this country. And it's a tough one to break. And I'll say this too, and this is something I want you all to think about in terms of, how you become teachers as you move on, right? One of the reasons why they came so hard at the question of education is because there's a fear amongst the older amongst them that people can be educated out of their racism. And some of us believe that. New Jersey is a state that has a bill called the Amistad bill that is supposed to enable every public school system in the state to include history that's inclusive of African-American history and other people's history in a way that intentionally has that particular role. It has never been given the enforcement dimensions that it genuinely needs to move the needle. So as you asked that question, what do we do about these white guys, right? This, know how they talk, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I think it would be naive to say that like Donald Trump's campaign didn't champion white supremacy, because it does. That's 100% like a part of his campaign, a part of his demographic is white supremacy and pushing for that. So yeah, 100% agree.
And let me add this to the conversation. We learned because we produced a mayor's forum here out of the city of Newark, Mayor Baraka. We learned that when he came on to do the show, we had not gotten those numbers at that point, but he shared with us that there were 500,000 more Republicans that had not voted in the past presidential election in the state of New Jersey. Were you guys aware of that? Those kind of numbers? And as you know, New Jersey is not a red state. New Jersey is a blue state. And so when you look at those particular numbers, what we were hearing, and because we get, we're fortunate enough to get an opportunity to speak to a lot of different people. And what we were hearing is that, particularly from people like Melanie Campbell, who's in charge of the Black Women Roundtable, she said that in this article, you can go and find it in the New York Times. One of the things she was talking about is that the white women who had said that they would support Kamala Harris and they were with Black women actually went in the voting booth, just like here in New Jersey, actually went in the voting booth and did just the opposite. And so it became very much about race and gender, but it also became about folks who had betrayed the very Black women who had supported them, and so they felt betrayed. And so when we talk about the women like Joy Reid, or we talk about Black women like Tamika Mallory, or we talk about Black women Kamala. You talk about these folks, and yes, she may be privileged, and yes, she may be, what some white women saw as an ideal candidate. That may be true. But all of the Black women who had come together under one umbrella and who thought that they were partnering with their fellow sisters believed that their sisters actually went in and voted race and didn't vote gender at that very moment. So I hear what you all are saying, but what we've seen is that the data doesn't prove that. The data actually says that it was about race, and it was not about policy. It was not about gender. It was more about race than it was anything else. So if you young people get an opportunity, and I'm saying because you all are important to being able to put the truth out there, you all are important about being able to put that kind of information out there so that maybe we could encourage people to move beyond race, but move with the facts, move with where we are and where we're going as a society, right? We may have not have all agreed with Kamala, but we agreed that she was a better candidate than Trump. And so did we vote our interests, or did we vote based on race, or did we vote based on democracy, or did we vote based on the Constitution, or did we vote based on what's good for the country? Those are questions I think that all of us have to ask ourselves who went in and voted, right? Why did we vote? And as Chairman Larry Hamm just said prior to you all coming on, it is true that we had 4 years of Trump 4 years ago. It's true, right? 8 years ago, it's true. However, this Trump that's coming on the 20th is nothing like the first experience we had with him. He planned on doing, he's already put out a number of things. I don't know if you all have elderly parents, but if you've got elderly parents who got Medicare, who got Social Security, and that becomes privatized, right? You have got to understand what that really means to their very survival, what that means to their very health care. You're talking about people who actually worked for that, right? Now, that may not be around when you guys get ready to retire, but that is what your parents and your grandparents worked for, so that would be there for them in order to be able to provide health care and to cover some of their living expenses. People are worried about those things, and they don't know what to expect. And so for you all, you all are the truth tellers. We believe that the pen is mightier than the sword. And as journalists, I think that it behooves you all, right, to be able to tell the facts as you see them. And yes, it need not to be based on black and white race, black and white, but it needs to be based in truth, and it needs to be based in data.
Yeah, I think once again, I'll say race is definitely a factor, but I think we can't ignore that Kamala Harris had about 100 days to campaign. Meanwhile, Trump was campaigning for the past 4 years, almost took the White House by force in 2021. So I think that's all that to say. It's not, to me, I think it's maybe misleading to say the data is saying that the election is about race. I think it's the factor, but we probably can't ignore just the groundwork that the conservatives have gotten in before the Democrats for this one. I think is maybe one of my final thoughts.
I think for my final thought, I have to say, I guess, the data I was looking at, because I did some research before the town hall, and I saw that for these young voters, for white women, 49% supported each candidate. So it's kind of an even split, which you might have expected it to go more one way or the other. So, of course, you cannot deny that race was a factor that helped many people decide. Perhaps if they were split, a white woman might decide that they might vote for Trump just because they identify with him more than they do with Harris. I think it comes, and we can contemplate and speculate about what were the main factors in the Harris loss and the Trump win. I think it's more important and more productive, perhaps, to start like as you said, to start having people vote with the facts and not their just prejudices and feelings. I think that can only be done if we as like as a Democrats, they can start like really getting in the shoes of the people. Like you said, yes, the white men are logical, the white women might be racist, but why do they have these prejudices? People aren't born evil, or they aren't born racist. It's shaped by certain life experiences, and we have to really get in their shoes. We have to make sure that whatever key experiences are shaping their like points of views aren't exacerbated in the next 4 years. One thing that I quickly really want to mention before we end off today is that I know earlier you mentioned the Amistad Law and how it's all about education of race in New Jersey. And I think it's important to have these like wider overarching syllabuses. And I think one thing is that with the elimination of the DOE in the next 4 years, it'll be interesting to see how maybe states will either be demotivated to have further policies, or perhaps they'll enjoy this new freedom to actually implement more and progressive policies and really target it at the grassroots level. I think the classroom is perhaps the best way to start flipping or turning like white women or white men to maybe the Democratic side, because then they can perhaps see and understand the other side better without being clouded by prejudice of their life experiences. That's kind of what I'll say. I want to end with more of a call to action instead of a speculation of what happened and why.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Well, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, in the spirit of everyone sharing their closing thoughts, I'll also say the same thing. I think there was a lot of good points brought up today, and obviously we're here to speak as the young generation and to bring our own thoughts into everything that's happening in the political sphere, as now many of us are of the age to vote and actively be a part of politics and civic engagement and things like that. And I know that you had mentioned that you have a daughter who's 17 and she's now gonna be in college and things like that. I would echo Ashani's call to action of making sure that we're supporting grassroots organizations, that we're supporting community journalism, that we're supporting nonprofit newsrooms, and reading independent journalists and listening really deeply and asking the right questions and trying to break out of the framework that we have been otherwise told to. And I think as a generation, we've become quite jaded in the short time that we've been alive. We've become quite jaded and pessimistic about the future, especially politically. And I think this election really taught us that it's time to forge true and authentic community and to understand what that means, and to to make sure that we're not stabbing each other in the back, to make sure that we're not scapegoating each other and blaming each other. And as long as we're doing that, then we're not focusing on what really matters. And I really hate to be big brother and them and others, but there are certain things that if we were to band together and unify, that we could get done. But as long as we're divisive and we're not thinking critically, there are a lot of things that slip under the cracks, and we're not able to get up and demand and ask for the things that we want. So yeah, that's what I'd like to end off with, that we should still be bold and still be focused on what we want as a community, and invest in those things as much as possible. And on the side of journalism, that means reading, writing as much as possible, reading from varied backgrounds and having open conversations like this one. So thank you all.
Wow, right on. We need more time, and I had a feeling this segment was going to spill over the way it did, and that's okay. But it means one thing. It means that your teacher has been shortchanged a little bit with her segment. So, Andy, I want you to do several things in the moments that we have left. I want you, one, to share your thoughts in the teachable moments that you heard from your students so far, and then pivot and tell us about what you've got coming up that you want to report next week in terms of your webinar on domestic violence.
Well, I have to say they are deep thinkers, and they thought about that election way more than I did, because I was like, I'm done with both parties. we need to keep it moving. But I really appreciated your analysis. You talking about the issue from the standpoint of economics and race and our places in society. And I'm really glad that we talked about the layers of race. You know, how the people of Gaza were completely ignored, like a genocide is no big deal. You know, how the Haitians once again were demonized for just existing. And how people like me, Black women, college educated Black women, our vote was taken for granted, you know, just assumed that we were going to vote a certain way, therefore didn't have to speak to what we may want. So, lots of discussion needs to be had. These young people are leading the way. So glad that we have a space like Public Square Amplified for them to really learn civics and engage in deep thinking, and to be able to report in that regard. That is not always possible. Even if you have the mind and the spirit to want to report on certain things when you work for corporate media, you're not always able to, because at the end of the day, it's a capitalist society, and money rules.
I'm going to give y'all some homework before you go. And Andy, I want you to stay there. I'm going to give y'all some homework before you go. Today is the birth anniversary of an incredible organizer who taught a whole lot of folks about critical thinking and how that being one of the important foundations of their organizing, as is standing firm on principle. And that is the late, great Ella Baker. So if you haven't studied the great Ella Baker, I think she'd be a wonderful influence in terms of how you shape your own set of principles and being and character as you continue to make your way. Thank you so much for coming back on us. Thank you for being the future face of journalism in our community. Thank you for being the legs under which Public Square Amplified is now on its walk, right? And thank you for being a good reflection of your teachers, right? Thank you for being a good reflection of your teachers. We started this conversation months ago with me apologizing to your generation for having to face this set of circumstances that we did not think would roll back this far. I'll end this my responsibility of this conversation, sharing that same apology. Yet at the same time, letting everybody know that we have a responsibility to those coming behind us, to those who sacrificed their lives, who came before us, to do the best we can to change this game, to change this condition, to move things better in the ways we see fit, because another world is indeed possible. So thank y'all. I'm very proud of you. And you have an open mic that's always available to you here at All Politics Are Local.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for the time. Great conversation.
So much.
Now, teacher woman, but stay there for a second.
Thank you.
Stay there for a second, Andy. Right? Should you have some words on what
I wanted to say one more thing, because the Amistad Law, which is a beautiful thing. Bill Payne, right? And his nephew, right, Craig, right? They were the ones that crafted that, and it was made a law, and there's an Amistad Commission, yet it is not practiced universally in the schools in New Jersey. So you have people working hard to create change, to create it at the level that Ed was talking about, that we need to have it in the schools. People need to be educated. They need to understand. They have the knowledge of history. And, it's arbitrary. Like, you have a law, but you have to implement the law. So some schools really embrace it, like Bashir Akinyele at Weequay High School, and he's all about it. And you go to his classroom and you just look around and you have a history lesson of African American studies. There are other schools that they may just have one day of African American awareness, you know. So it varies on how it's instituted school to school. So that's something that, you know, as activists that we could be working on. It's like, let's make sure that that is implemented and practiced, you know. And other groups took a cue from us. I believe the Asian community took a cue from us on that, and so did the Hispanic community. So I wonder how they're faring. Probably not much better.
Yeah, and to that point, and I've had some of them on, AAPI of New Jersey, you know, led a campaign on the question of Asian American history being properly included into the curriculum as well, and it's gotten headway on that, right? So you're absolutely right about that. But the question of implementation is everything, and education is right in front of us. It's a space that we all share, so it's a battleground that's always there for us to try and advance on. So right on, and thank you for that. Now, tell us what you got coming up. You got a big event coming up.
How much time do I have? Oh my goodness. Okay, so I am moderating a panel discussion on Wednesday, December 18th at 2 p.m. It is a virtual discussion. You can register, and you have to register with a QR code, which clearly I cannot have with me here. So you can call me and I can send you a link, and I'm going to give that number right now. It is 201-230-8816. Is the chat visible?
Put it in the private chat. Yes.
Okay. Maybe Josie can put it in the chat for me, or Trevor, if someone that's watching. So you can call me, and I can send you the link to the event. It is on domestic violence awareness. This is a topic that is extremely important and often ignored. Just violence against women in general. We don't talk enough about, you know, we march for everyone. We fight all the time. And the statistics on violence against women are incredible. So globally, femicide, which is defined as gender-related killing of women and girls, is a critical concern, right? Recent estimates highlight that one woman or girl is killed every 10 minutes by an intimate partner or family member. So I'm going to give you some examples, because this domestic violence intersects, if you're a journalist, every aspect of your reporting. So this year, I don't know about you guys, I follow track and field. Well, one of the young African women
from Uganda.
Pardon?
From Uganda. Come on. I'm with
right.
you.
You know, her partner, wasn't happy with her and decided he was going to pour gasoline over this woman and set her on fire and murdered that woman. These are the things that happen to women all the time. We don't have to go to Africa. We can look right here in our entertainment industry and look at P. Diddy kicking his girlfriend in the hallway of a hotel like I wouldn't even do that to my dog. I can't even say like a dog, because my dog is on my bed right now. You know, beating down that woman and kicking her like she was garbage, right? This is in the United States of America. Okay. So 60% of femicides are committed by intimate partners. So according to the Bureau of Justice Statistics in 2021, 34% of female murder victims were killed by an intimate partner. All right. And this is to contrast that only 6% of men died that way. Additionally, broader studies highlight that nearly half of all female homicide victims are killed by a current or former intimate partner. So you hear the trend. I mean, we are basically at risk from the people that we love.
Right.
You know? Yeah. The rates of, and I don't even want to get into rape, because those will just go off the charts. But I will say today in NJ.com, as I was just scrolling through, there were a couple of stories. One was talking about police officers who had covered up for another police officer who had beat up his spouse here in New Jersey. And that was an older case, but there was a new case, and I forget where it was. I think it was in the middle of the state, and some official had beat up his girlfriend because she threatened to leave him. That's usually a big reason why men do that, you know? So in my promoting this event, I've had so many women, you know, for example, I reported on a woman who lost her house. It was one of my biggest stories this year. And, you know, the predatory loans and, you know, it was this picture of just this little Black woman in front of the house that she lost. And I spoke to her last night and told her what was going on. And she was like, you know, I didn't tell you this, but she goes, that's how all of this happened. My husband was physically abusing me. I had to separate from him, and I was left with my 2 sons and the mortgage. And she fought like hell to keep everything afloat. So you can see how domestic violence infiltrates so many parts of our lives, you know, and our economy. You know, women losing I don't know how many thousands of days of work because they are too injured to go to work, right? And therefore losing the money. So I'm bringing together a great panel. We have Pamela McCauley from the Essex County Prosecutor's Office.
An important resource for decades.
No kidding. And we had a great conversation. She is brilliant. She will be with us. She will be talking about programs that she has going on and also legislation that she has tried to help drive through to help victims of domestic abuse. I have 2 women that run organizations that shelter women. One is Hasna Mokhtar of Wafa House, and her focus is on the Muslim community. And her organization is very established. She will be telling us about her organization. She will also be talking about how the media reports on domestic violence and some of the issues that she has with it, and some tips that she has for journalists so that they can have more compassionate reporting when it comes to that topic. I also have Ingrid Liriano of Casa de Amor, and she focuses on her work on helping migrant women. So you can imagine you're being abused and you're a migrant and you don't speak the language and you're afraid to go to the hospital, on and on and on and on. And so she will be there with us. And I also have a young woman that I met who, through Ingrid, who is a victim of domestic violence. And she is in a precarious situation because she does not have her citizenship. Her husband didn't use that as a weapon against her, wouldn't sign her papers. At any rate, she's going to share her story, which is really brave. It is very hard to get women to publicly speak, you know. So she will be on camera, and and Ingrid will translate for her. She's going to share her story because she thinks it's important for people to know. And I have Lisa Bednars, who is at RWJ Barnabas, and she is in health administration. But prior to that, she was actually in the hospital on the floor when women were coming in. So she will walk us through what happens with a woman when she gets to the hospital, which I think is really important. And we will have resources for the public, for the media, that we can email to them after the event. But I'm really passionate about this. You know, I thought about my own past situations, which I hadn't thought about in a long time, you know, because I don't really identify as a victim, but I had to think long and hard about it. I was like, there have been some situations that were not good, you know, and that I extricated myself from. But looking back, that was domestic violence, you know, and we need to like see women and like really like understand that just being a woman and walking into certain spaces, you can feel danger.
Yes, that's right.
You know,
yes,
and much less have to worry about your husband setting you on fire. So, you know, I want us to talk about this more.
Well, I'm glad you are. I'll say several things very quickly, and then we got to jump into the next segment. I'm glad that you're doing that. It's one of the spaces that we're trying to give additional attention to here in terms of the community-based violence intervention ecosystem here in Newark. The heart of that question here in Newark is the Shani Baraka Women's Center, named after the mayor's sister who we lost in an ugly act of domestic violence, right? It's something that's very, very heavy to a lot of us, right? We just came off of the International Day to Eliminate Violence Against Women. That is May 25th. And I'm looking to do something on a big scale. It's a part of Malcolm's centennial, because Malcolm was one of the few Black men in the movement that was not liberal about that. During the time when the movement forces are still quite liberal about not addressing sexism and violence against women. And we have something in New York called the Brides March. They'll be going into its 24th year, and it's a march of women, Black and brown women, many of whom wear white brides gown to as a demonstration of solidarity for a woman who was killed literally in her gown on her way to the church by her former lover. And it's a big deal in New York City every year on September 26th. So there are a lot of places to go to build on this conversation when you set it off. So we're looking forward to having you, and appreciate having you for this amount of time with us this particular week. It's been a moment, and we need to have you on more regularly.
So I just want to say once again, feel free to call me 201-230-8816, or you can contact Zayid and he'll forward you to me. And because I really want people to show support, because the more support I have means I can do a part 2. I can talk about how, being poor intersects domestic violence, and just all of the other things that we need to discuss and bring to the surface so we can heal it.
Right on.
Can you tell us where it's going to be?
It is virtual, Ed.
Okay.
It is virtual, so you guys just need to get the link, and you can be in the comfort of your home, or sneak an hour away at the office, and tune in. And I have to say, just before I go, that Ingrid,
and when is that going to be?
It's next Wednesday, December 18th, from 2 p.m. until about 3:30. I'm trying to push an extra half hour in there. But you have people like Ingrid who has another job. She has a day job. And then, she comes and she herself a victim of domestic violence, helping other women. She said right now she's got a young woman sleeping in her car, but she's doing everything she can to help the community. So let
me ask you this, because when Zayid was talking about the Brides March that take place in New York, and we've had those sisters on a number of times. Do you guys partner with any men's organizations?
Do we partner with
any men's organizations? Because when we had those folks on, they had partnered with a number of men's organizations.
This is my first panel discussion, but as a journalist, I'm looking at it from presenting the information. So we do have someone that is going to talk about men and services for men within the conversation, but I'm not partnering with anyone. These are my invited guests.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. But I am certainly open to everybody, always. Yeah.
Because I think this is an important conversation, but I think that, some of the brothers that we had on with those sisters, they were actually trying to help men who were having issues in that particular arena themselves, right? Because they were coming from broken situations. And it is difficult for you, if you're a broken person, to go into another situation and you believe that you're somehow going to make that situation whole, and you're broken. And, because I heard you say that, as you were thinking about it, there were a couple of situations that you were in that you had to think about, and you ID'd at some point that were domestic violence issues for you. And I think that a lot of women go through that, right? And I think that carries on for them because they never really deal with that. And then they go into that again, and it becomes cyclical, right? You go from relationship to relationship. And one of the things the mayor said was that in the city of Newark, most of the violence that was taking place in our city against women was domestic violence, right?
Crazy.
That's something that we've got to deal with, right? And I think that we ought not leave these brothers out of it, because I think that these brothers, they need help too, right? And I think that if they're committing violence against their wives or their girlfriends, right, we need to begin to not only help them so that they can get into or be in better relationships. I think we need to help the sisters so that they don't enter into those relationships with those broken people, right? Because it puts them in a dangerous situation. And like Zayid was saying, one of the things that you know that we're going to share a little bit, because my partner here, Jonathan Austin, is writing a book with the mayor's brother, and he talks about that incident about his sister, and I think that he's going to share some things about that, and I don't think that people really fully understand from the part of the men who have mothers or who have daughters or who have sisters who are in that, and how impotent they feel and not being able to do anything about it, because oftentimes it's after the fact. Right. They don't find out about it because the women are trying to protect that man, because they know if they tell somebody in the family, if they tell their brother, if they tell their father, or if they tell a real good friend of theirs, something's going to happen. Right. And I think that when they do find out, oftentimes it's too late. Those kinds of things that you talked about, people being set on fire and all of that, or people being murdered, I mean, that's after the fact. And I think that we've got to get to the point where that kind of information can be told before something happens and something can be done about it. So I would be very interested in, because Zayid, you probably remember the brothers that came on with those sisters, and I thought those brothers were amazing. They were willing to be vulnerable. They were willing to, partner with them sisters, and they were willing to say that, they needed to be able to deal with their own issues before they thought about getting involved with any woman.
100%. Quentin Walcott is a gem of a resource on that front. He's he's a leader of Connect New York City, and he's a resource that we can bring into these conversations moving forward. And there'll be others, Andy, that we can of course share as we try and move the conversation on the wings of what you do on the.
Please register. It's free. Next Wednesday, December 18th, 2 p.m. It's virtual. Contact me. I'll send you the link. Ande Richards, 201-230-8816.
Put the link in the chat, and we'll put it on the Facebook page as well as the IG page.
And thank you, Andy, for everything that you do. Right?
Thank you.
We know what you're dealing with, especially also. You're going through a lot, trying to uphold your principles, and we appreciate you. All right.
I try.
We see you. We see you, Queen. We see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We have run over several segments. I know I got some folks in the background that are supposed to come on. Chris and India. Are y'all still there? Are they in the background?
No, we don't have Chris is here. I see him.
Okay. Chris, and there you go. All right, okay. And let me just, as y'all are coming on, let me apologize that your segment is beginning late, almost 30 minutes late. And sometimes it happens here. We get into some intense conversations here in this space. And yours is going to be intense if you light it up the way I need you to light it up. I want you to come in here being all soft and whatnot. Right. Cuban solidarity, hot and heavy.
But Zayid, before you do that, let's welcome Hawk to the show.
Yes.
Peace, family. How you doing?
Peace. Good to see you, beloved. One of our strong voices in hip hop, deeply rooted in community organizing and struggle, who always helping us to advance these conversations on the front of hip hop culture, right? Chris, you just got back to Cuba a little while.
No, I heard some feedback, but yeah.
Yeah, and you went with Brigada Venceremos. That's the Venceremos Brigade, right? One of the oldest organizations of its kind in terms of Cuba solidarity coming out of the United States. And you've got a report back that you're getting ready to do this weekend in Jersey City, and you got one of your comrades with you. And I'm told that she's with the All African People's Revolutionary Party too. Wow. I definitely want to hear what this daughter got to say, because the party is very dear to a whole lot of us on the Black left. Kwame Ture was a personal friend, comrade, and mentor to a lot of us, including yours truly. And he left his mark on that organization in his own unique and inimitable way. So I definitely want to hear what y'all got, right? What y'all got? Talk to us.
Yeah, so just very briefly, Chris Duran organized with the Venceremos Brigade and also Build More Unity, which is an organization based out of Jersey City. Also involved with a lot of political prisoner work. The Venceremos Brigade is an organization that was started in 1969 that unites around several principles that includes ending the blockade on Cuba, closing the naval base at Guantanamo Bay, and ending the occupation of Cuba that still continues by the U.S. military. The right of people to freely travel, and taking Cuba off the state sponsor of terrorist watch list. Our last contingent, our most recent contingent, was our 52nd. This past July, we went to the eastern part of the island, including
52nd. Oh,
yeah.
I'm saying that because I was I go back to the 80s with Brigada Venceremos. That's a long time ago. Go ahead, son. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, and also one of our main principles is to educate folks on Cuba so that they come back here and embody that political education and organizing work here. Cuba has shown a lot of solidarity with our movements, with freedom fighters. Here in the United States, we know people like Assad Shakur and Nahanda Abiodun were given asylum in Cuba, along with many others. There's a lot more people, for example, in Cuba that might know names like Mumia than folks here. But so myself and my comrade India, we went on the brigade. I served as a responsable. India was there as a brigadista, and part of our mission to come back and educate folks here on the Cuban Revolution is to do things like this, like these report backs. We have one report back in Jersey City that's going to be both in person and virtual at the Free Public Library main branch at 2 p.m. and that's going to run till 5 p.m. And
that's tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and the AAPRP that India can speak more to. They're going to have an online report back on the 28th of December as well. So yeah.
India, let me turn to you, daughter. They named the whole country after you. You got to be powerful, right? Let me just use this clarion call that we use in our solidarity work and amongst our folks. When Africa called, Cuba answered. Break down what that means to our community coming from your generation.
Coming from my generation, with that, I mean,
we need these young voices to step forward. Come on, daughter. Come on.
Come on, daughter. Yeah, I mean, it's historical, so it's really not what our generation has to say about it. It's historical that Cuba has always been a friend to Africa. I mean, the party, we say that Cuba is an African nation. I mean, if you look at the religious practices, if you look at the origin of the music, if you look at the people, I mean, all the way down to like I said, the religion of it. So Fidel Castro, you have Antonio Maceo. Most of Cuban whole the revolution, we was marching through it. So not only did they give us African soldiers there, we marched and shed blood as well in for the Cuban Revolution. So, you know, our story is intertwined with theirs.
You can blow that up a little more. Be specific. You know, I mean, there's places to go with that. This is a teaching platform. A lot of folks don't know that stuff. You can be a little more specific. Go a little further.
Go a little further with the history.
Yeah.
Okay, so Chris, help me out with the name Maria. What's the one that had all
Mariana Cajares.
The whole generation. That whole generation.
Nation.
Yeah.
Huh.
The mother of the Cuban nation.
The mother of the Cuban nation.
Come on.
And not only the mother, her whole generation fought for the revolution, down to her kids. The daughters was nurses, the sons was generals. Like, I mean, again, that's our blood intertwined with that. From Che going undercover, he looking like a European man going undercover to Congo and helping organize the soldiers there. I know it's a teaching platform, but I mean, we're gonna teach them all night.
Girl, you can't miss your moments when you're on radio. That's all right. That's all right. Something for the few minutes that we have, sum up where y'all got to go and see yourselves when you went on this particular brigade.
Yeah, we went to Santiago. We went to Hakeem. We went to Guantanamo Bay. I mean, all those islands right there is straight. We saw our people right there. They were showing us mad love. We got to speak to the locals. We got to play with the locals with different sports. Yeah, I mean, we got to dance with the locals. All of them is African. Like that's what I'm saying. Like we right there in the mix.
When one of some journalistic history, when Fidel had been interviewed by the late Barbara Walters, who was considered the darling of liberal corporate media once upon a time, she said, "Mr. Castro, why are you in Africa?" And she was referring, of course, to Angola, right? And the fact that it was Cuba's military solidarity with Angola. Cuba took back to Africa real personal in a profound way. And that military solidarity in Angola was key in defeating and unseating the apartheid regime in Southern Africa. Heavy stuff, right? But Fidel's answer was most instructive and very to the point, because Cuba is an African country. And of course, it knocked their brains out. You don't go silent on TV and radio when you're interviewing somebody because you're killing their time. He knocked the brains out, and she went silent and didn't know what to do, right? But that is real stuff, right? And at a time when Cuba is facing some particular challenges, they're talking about this right-wing lunatic coming into the White House, putting a right-wing lunatic from Florida as Secretary of State. An already hostile environment is going to become more hostile, and our solidarity, therefore, as a matter of principle, is going to become more important in the face of combating that hostility. What do y'all say to that?
I can jump in on that real quick.
Go ahead, Chris.
I think this kind of like touches upon like the conversation that y'all were having with the young journalists from Public Square Amplified, and also shout out to them really, because like there's they're very critical, and that's the type of stuff that we need, especially when we're talking about politically educating people and bringing these politics back to the United States. The blockade against Cuba was imposed by the most liberal Democrat, President John F. Kennedy, with the intention of creating a destabilized situation and making misery, throughout the island so bad that they would overthrow their own government. And this is in the Mallory memorandum that was also written at that time, that the intention was to starve the island so that they would overthrow their government eventually, because the government was too popular, at the time to just like impose a coup the way that the U.S. would normally do, which, we've actually seen recently regarding Syria. But with this regard, again, the thing is, like, with these Democrats, like, they have never broken from this policy. They have only maintained and intensified it and provided the infrastructure, just like they have with domestic policy, for right-wing lunatics like Rubio or Trump to work with. You know, like, for example, when we talk about what Trump wants to do, that entire infrastructure was provided to him by people like Joe Biden. When we look at these right-wing lunatics that are coming to power, it's Joe Biden, you know, who has maintained keeping Cuba on the state-sponsored terror watch list, which is an insane category. You know, while the U.S. is sponsoring literal genocide, you know, across the world, and Cuba is sending doctors, and, you know, Cuba is literally opposing that genocide on the state level, by the way. You know, here you have protesters that are being repressed at college campuses. You know, middle class, you know, white student protesters are being repressed. Professors, staff, you know, are being repressed here in the United States simply for exercising their freedom of speech in support of Palestine. There, the president of Cuba is marching with the people in support of Palestine. You know, there, and one of the films that we're going to be showing tomorrow is by a group called Belly of the Beast. It's a 13-minute long video. Actually, you can find it on YouTube if you'd like. It's called From Gaza to Cuba. And it's talking about some medical students that are studying in Cuba that are helping to build that solidarity. And I believe, you know, we also had like some comrades like Gail Walker, who runs IFCO Pastors for Peace, who was recently down there in Cuba celebrating the anniversary of the Latin American School of Medicine, which allows people from all over the world to come and study medicine in Cuba for free. We're hoping to actually have Gail Walker tomorrow at the report back in order to help connect that history.
For free.
Yeah.
For free.
So, I mean, the take on the intensification of this is, of course, you know, with, you know, as the right gets stronger, like, you know, of course, we need like stronger solidarity with Cuba, but also realizing the fact that no matter who is in office, the policy, you know, we need to, as H. Rap Brown, formerly H. Rap Brown, currently Imam Jamil Amin said, whoever's in office, we have to be ready to oppose that person. Right. And the reason why I shout him out in specific is because of the fact that he is currently needing emergency medical treatment and is currently held as a political prisoner in Tucson, Arizona. And, you know, I think there's an importance to speak to that as well. That, you know, in the United States, the vanguard of these liberation movements for African and colonized people within the United States are still held as political prisoners. And these are the, you know, so those are the people whose politics align with a country like Cuba. And so we really have to consider that. And the fact that, you know, Biden has been pardoning a lot of people. He has still not pardoned Leonard Peltier. He has still not pardoned Mumia Abu-Jamal. And, you know, folks need to push for that.
Yes, yeah, very good. Andy, you want to add to that?
Yeah, Chris really knocked it out for real. No matter who's the head of the snake, I mean, it's still gonna bite you, whether it hang you or shoot you. Like, you know what I mean? It's still happening. It's still murder happening. As far as Cuba, like, I think people don't understand, like, Cuba is the beacon of socialism. So if we're really fighting for socialism, solidarity is needed amongst people that aligns with your ideology. Like, it must be an international thing, because the enemy is international. You have a place, like, we have comrades that's actually studying at the Latin America school that Chris was speaking about. Not only that's one connection. The other connection is Malcolm X said it himself. Kwame Ture said it himself that Fidel Castro is the highest form of Pan-Africanist. Like, he shows that Cuba still carried that on to this day, as Chris mentioned, sending out doctors, sending out COVID tests, sending out education. I just came from Algeria, and our sisters that's struggling for the Morocco occupation, half of those sisters study in Cuba, you know, with their conscious level. Like, all that stuff, Cuba is still giving international solidarity, even when the biggest names that everybody know, Fidel and Che, is long gone. Like, these are normal people that's still showing solidarity and living and making sure that their name lives on. So like that's something that we need as we're fighting for socialism everywhere we are on this planet, because capitalism is coming, and the head of that snake is American imperialism.
When were y'all there? What time of year were y'all there? I'm going somewhere with that question.
In Cuba?
26th.
Yeah.
You there for July 26th? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. I was hoping you was going to say May 1st but either way, the point that I'm trying to make is when you lifted up the question of the introduction of the blockade, which was way back in 1962, 62 years ago, right? That the idea of the blockade was to ultimately get the people to turn against the revolution themselves. But when it comes to situations and times like May 1st and July 26th, what do you actually see in terms of the people's support for their government and their revolution? What did y'all actually see?
I saw babies up at 2 a.m. to sing a revolutionary song. I had to wake up at 4 a.m. to be there. So I witnessed it. I witnessed the entire thing. People dedicate their time, wake up to their revolution. That's Chris, you want to add to that? Because I seen it.
Yeah, well, India, you was already awake that day. Let's not.
Come on.
But nah, well, let me not get started on that. But no, I mean, the revolution again is not just Fidel. It's not just these famous figures and the heroes of July 26th. It's the heroes of the revolution live every day in the people, and I think that's one of the things that is when we're talking about demystifying these ideas and demystifying socialism and actually understanding these countries around the world apart from what U.S. corporate-owned media shows us. When you're in Cuba, you see this, like, again, from the oldest person who might have been around during the revolution, to the youngest child that, they are there, they are fully participatory in their society. They keep each other safe, all these sorts of things that we talk about, having, instead of like militarized police, having like the community watch out for each other, that's actually practiced in Cuba. These things are not just theoretical ideas. And then also, again, confronting imperialism, the majority of the country is very much united around that. The majority of the country that defends Cuban socialism and the Cuban revolutionary process, which is, again, I'll say the Cuban revolutionary process because that's the way that they describe it, because they know it's something that's never, that's not, ending. It's something that's ongoing. That's why they were able to, redo their constitution in 2018. That's why they were able to pass the family code that has the most progressive laws when it comes to LGBTQ rights, and family rights in all of Latin America, and arguably even compared to some Western countries, especially compared to the United States. We don't even have to go there, but here, like, at a time when we're seeing the so-called, the right in the United States, like, threaten colonized people here. Cuba stands in an exact, like it's an exact counter to that. It's not, they stand head and shoulders above the United States in terms of human rights. That's a quote by Nelson Mandela. So again, this country, the people are so welcoming to us, even knowing that we come from a country that is technically still occupying their country militarily in Guantanamo. And that's also another thing, like, imperialism is not some theoretical thing. You can see it when you're down there, like, in front of you. So yeah, but they're still, they're so gracious and welcoming to people all over the world. And the revolution of Cuba is very much embodied spiritually, in the people there.
Sum up again for what you're going to do tomorrow, time, place, who's going to be there, so we can wrap it up. And I apologize, we had to get on a little later than usual, and this is going to be and already is an ongoing conversation in this platform. Go ahead. So what's going to happen tomorrow, again, for everybody's benefit?
I'll plug the local event tomorrow, and then India can plug the event on the 28th. So the event tomorrow in Jersey City at the Free Public Library main branch. I think it's 427 Jersey Ave, something like that. I mean, you can send out the flyer, but so that'll be 2 to 5 p.m. We'll be doing a short film screening of 2 films from Gaza to Cuba and Cuba and Africa, and then we'll be having a panel of people who recently were in Cuba doing a report back, to the audience, talking about their experiences there, and hopefully we'll have a couple elders who historically were a part of the brigade, like Gail Walker, in order to connect that as an intergenerational conversation, and what it means for our organizing here. And that's tomorrow at 2 p.m. And
472 Jersey Avenue, Jersey City. I just pulled the flyer.
Zayid.
Yes, ma'am.
There's another. I'm sorry,
can
but
I ask? Okay, I'm sorry.
India needs to plug the second program.
All right, real quick. Yeah. Cause y'all seem like y'all want to chat. So it's the International Cuba Report Back of AAPRP, All African Women's Revolutionary Union. We're having it December 28th. It's gonna be 7 p.m. UTC, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, 11 a.m. PT. So the register is the tinyurl.com /end the blockade against Cuba. So make sure you all check it out. I can repeat it one more time. It's tinyurl.com /end the blockade on Cuba. So make sure you check us out. As y'all know, we are an international party. So if you speak Spanish, we got you. If you speak French, we got you. If you speak Portuguese, I know these are colonized languages, but unfortunately, that's how we're going to connect. So make sure y'all tap in.
India, make sure that Chris gets me the flyer, because I don't have the flyer for the 28th. So I can get that. All right. Go ahead, Don.
Can I ask Chris or India a question? And if India, if you have to go, Chris can answer the question. And you might have asked that. I'm just curious, and I apologize for coming in late. Just a crazy day. Chris, with them having tourism opened up and then closed, did that have any effect? How did y'all discuss how they felt with the tourism? Because when they opened the tourism up, it was really, really booming, and then to have it stop, how did you get to discuss with any of the people there how they felt about that? And was it a loss? Did it matter to them either way?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, that's a longer conversation, because there's a lot of parts that go into it. But so when they opened up tourism again, some of the pros was because of the fact that this is a country that is, for the most part, has been a peasant-dominated economy, an export economy that was, former colony, first of Spain, then the United States. Tourism brought income to the country after the fall of the Soviet Union, and the benefit of it, was that, having the debt taken on by the state was still able to run social programs that they're, like free healthcare, housing, education, things like that. Some of the negatives was that, it led to some imbalances in terms of income inequality. When Obama opened it up a little bit more, there was some more like income coming into the country. And, again, like was just made in the comments, the blockade, still has, an enormous effect on them. And so it's like, they're not really able to, do much else with the economy because of the blockade. And I think that getting into that also and studying that a little bit more is important, because the blockade is not just preventing people in the U.S. from trading with Cuba, but also involves the United States intimidating people in other countries from trading with Cuba. Right. And so again, when the sanctions that Trump put on Cuba took effect, that Biden has maintained, they involve the fact that tourism is no longer it's much more difficult to get to Cuba from the United States. There's a lot, you can't bring goods back and forth. No plant-based products from Cuba. You can't bring rum or cigars or anything like that. You have to have some type of special visa. That is either there's some tour companies that have been able to get it. A lot of times when we bring people to Cuba, it's through like an educational institution like colleges or universities, clergy, or groups like the Venceremos Brigade that have a special kind of visa designation.
Yeah, Chris, can I add to that right quick? Yeah, I just want to say before I think we have a habit of like looking towards the opposite party. Like we never really look towards what is the United States doing to affect somebody for if they shut something down. I think it is more so what is the blockade affecting, and especially because we don't think about down to the smallest child, to the disabled, to the hearing impaired, to the marginalized population there. So like the blockade is affecting all sectors. So I think it's bigger, like Chris said, it's a bigger discussion, seriously, but overall the blockade is affecting every aspect. So even if you keep getting money in, it doesn't matter because that money has to go because they already have free education. They already have all the free things happening. So like it's still money that's they're squeezing out because of the blockade. So anything that we automatically think could be extra money for Cuba is like absolutely not, because the blockade is blocking it. So yeah, I think we should always look towards what the enemy is doing, opposed to like what did the underdeveloped countries, as they say, why do they have to change something? So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Chelsea. It's been great to have you. Have a powerful conversation tomorrow and on the 28th. This is an ongoing conversation. Gail has been on this platform. Rosemary, we've had a bunch of folks on this platform on this conversation for a minute. This week marked the end of the decade of people of African descent, and that ended in Havana, in Cuba. We've got some folks who went down for that as well. So this is definitely going to be a platform. It's going to be an ongoing space for Cuban solidarity. So thank you both for what you're doing. And for
Are we going to ask the question?
We hadn't asked anybody that this whole night, right?
Hakeem, do you want to ask the question? Or you want me to ask it, Hakeem?
You muted, Hakeem.
We go. Can I ask it, Donna?
Yes, please.
All right. So I've been dubbed the hip hop ambassador of Newark, New Jersey. So in the spirit of that, Chris, India, what's your preferred, or who is your preferred hip hop artist at this current time? Who are you listening to? Who are you rocking with?
I'm gonna say, Zayid, were you saying something? Your lips are moving, but
I want you to go first because this is our first time with us.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna say Doechii. Big fan. Yeah, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
India.
I don't even know what. Oh, my best friend just dropped a Kendrick, so I'm bumping Kendrick for right now. That's like recent.
That's good.
Yeah.
Both high power choices right there. I put up a post on Facebook last week. Doechii's the hottest MC out right now, bar none. Male, female, don't matter. She's got bars, flow, style, charisma. She got the whole package like locked down. Of course, Kendrick is probably the, right now his movement is bigger than anybody else's. So yeah, dope.
All right, it's been a loaded show, y'all. Been a loaded show. Quite a recap. I want to thank everybody that's come on. Everybody that has come on to honor the late, great Mildred Crump, Councilman Pat, Council, everybody who he got on with us, Bashiak and Yele, Imam, Akil, and
Councilwoman Roundtree,
Kenny, right? It was a great share. right? Coming after on the wings of that, Public Square amplify those incredible student
Well,
journalists.
Zayid, we also had Rountree, so we want to
I
thank
see Rountree. That's right. My
You
bad.
did,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
You
Right.
did
That's
say it.
right. Uh-huh.
And
of
did we
course,
acknowledge Lieutenant Governor's mother passed?
no, we didn't know about that. Go ahead. Go ahead. Do
Yeah,
that.
Lieutenant the late great Sheila Oliver's mom recently passed. So they were off when Lieutenant Governor was still with us. When you saw the Lieutenant Governor Oliver, you will often see her mother. They were mother and daughter, but they were very good friends as well. And she just recently passed. So we want to send our love and condolences to their family as well. And I'm sorry I missed dedication to Mother Crump, and then just sending prayers that y'all already done to Larry and family as well.
And finally, we'll close on this note. Today is the birthday and the anniversary of her transition of one of the baddest Black organizers of the 20th century. Young heads, if you haven't studied her, please study the great Ella Baker. Great Ella Baker, right? Not just a champion of the so-called civil rights movement, but a ferocious anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-colonial, anti-imperialist, anti-capitalist revolutionary woman who was a big influence on the most radical expressions of the so-called civil rights movement as we know it. Long live Ella Baker.
Nikki Giovanni passed this week as well.
Yes.
Nikki was one of her students.
Also, please keep Imam Jamil Alameen in your prayers. Please keep calling. If you can send out information.
We got an alert. We got to put pressure on the facility.
He has a growth on his face, and he's been through several medical issues. Again, formerly H. Rap Brown, part of SNCC, huge part of the Black Power movement, great comrade of Kwame Ture, currently a political prisoner in Arizona.
Yep. Well, there it is, y'all. We want to thank everybody. As Zayid just said, we thank everyone for coming on tonight. We appreciate everyone coming through. Thank you, Zayid. Thank you, Donna. Thank you, Hawk. And of course, thank our guests, both of you, for coming on tonight. We appreciate y'all. And of course, your contribution. And give that program that's going to happen again tomorrow in Jersey City one more time before we go.
It's a Cuba report back, 2 to 5 p.m. at the Free Public Library main branch, 472 Jersey Ave.
And I will also
2 o'clock.
Yep. Also want to remind folks that tomorrow is going to be the funeral for the Honorable Mother Mildred Crump, the former president for the Newark City Council. Homegoing service is going to be tomorrow, Saturday, December the 14th. December the 14th, it's going to be at Metropolitan Baptist Church. That's 149 Springfield Avenue. And it's going to take place at 10 a.m. So if you guys can make it out, come out and celebrate the life of our beloved former council president, Mother Mildred Crump, tomorrow, 10 a.m. at the Metropolitan Baptist Church. All right, so until next week, we'll see. We'll catch some. Where's Zayid?
See you in the whirlwind.
Catch you in the whirlwind.
Peace.